Bonjour à tout le monde, j'espère que vous avez bien déjeuné, que vous avez bu un peu de café aussi, parce que là nous embarquons pour 2 heures du coup d'interventions qui vont être fort passionnantes certes, mais c'est aussi l'heure de la digestion. Donc on vous remercie tous d'être présents et à nos speakers aussi d'être venus de loin pour quelques-uns. Donc, nous commençons la session de cet après-midi sur le regard sur la clientèle. Et nous commençons avec l'intervention de E.J. Scott. Je vais maintenant parler en anglais pour le présenter. Donc, E.J. Scott, thank you very much, who comes to us from the Arts University at Bournemouth, where he is a lecturer in fashion and textiles. He was previously assistant costume curator at Killerton House, which was the National Trust's largest collection of historical dresses dating from 1960 to the present. And EJ is currently the curator of an exhibition called the Museum of Transology, which I think is an important exhibition for our times, speaking as an American under Trump, which is currently in London at the fashion exhibition space. Great, thank you very much. And EJ will be talking to us today. The title of his talk is Fried or Truffled Couture, Debunking the Myth that the House of Worth was the sole domain of the ultra-wealthy. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. My presentation today, I aim to demonstrate that understanding that their clients possessed different levels of wealth drove the House of Worth to produce different tiers of couture to satisfy the desires and budgets of different fashionable market segmentations. I will argue that this production included both a vast quantity and wide range of less embellished, simpler, and thus less expensive couture that nonetheless communicated shared taste values across the spread of differently wealthy customers due to the recognizability of Worth's designs. My argument's been unlocked via a material culture examination of the Anna Pennington Mellor collection of 19 pieces of House of Worth haute couture that I've dated from around 1884 to 1927. It was rediscovered in 2006 in a trunk in a basement at what was originally her daughter Hilda's home in Southside House, Wimbledon Green, London. It was identified by UK textile conservator Zenzi Tinker. Research has shown it had been forgotten for 70 years. It's been sent there by Hilda in 1939, along with the contents of her family's beloved grand estate home in Biarritz, Villefrançon, prior to France's surrender to Germany in 1940. Anna's husband, John Pennington Mellor, was a rich Liverpudlian cotton industrialist who traded with Egypt, Japan, and Brazil, but never once appeared on the British Spectator's millionaires list. After both marrying for a second time in 1872, the newlyweds settled in Biarritz. Villefrançon, designed in the style of Sussex vernacular revival architecture, is Biarritz's second grandest estate on 25 acres of woodlands and parks. This is where Anna wore her haute couture by the House of Worth as hostess. The collection consists of elegant evening dresses, mostly in black or cream, a formal urban walking jacket, a cape with hood and an opera coat, one day bodice and one evening bodice, and 3 pieces of rare fancy dress, including, according to Arden Holt, a gypsy costume. Here she is in the only photograph we have her wearing something from the collection. As astonishing as the size of Anna's collection is, it is not this, but rather the type of collection that makes it so important. To coin a phrase informed by both Charles and Gaston Worth, it is comprised of fried couture consumed by the ordinary wealthy lady of moderate means. So let me unpack that. In 1901, then financial controller of the House of Worth, Gaston Worth, who, like his father, was an incredibly astute businessman, made an assessment of the couture empire his family had built over the last 4 decades. He remarked to his then intern, Paul Poiret, on the salon's lack of product stratification, commenting, and I quote, "We are like some great restaurant that would refuse to serve aught but truffles. It is, therefore, necessary for us to create a department for pommes frites." Long before there was fast fashion, it appears there was fast food fashion. Gaston's father, Charles Frederick Worth, appears to contradict his son by locating the salon's production of garments at varied prices far earlier than 1901. In an obituary published in the Philadelphia Bulletin in 1895 upon Worth's death, the journalist reported, and I quote, "It is not the very rich alone who are Worth purchasers. Ladies of a moderate income can order simple costumes, but of good material and perfect style for a very moderate price." Charles Worth was quoted in the same article as saying, "I can assure you, my usual charge for an ordinary silk evening dress is from £50 to £75. Ordinary silk dresses purchased by the ordinarily wealthy lady of moderate income. This concurs with another statement made by Charles Worth, this time reported in an obituary by the Commercial Gazette. He states, "We have many patrons of comparatively modest means. We make dresses costing from $200 upwards. I rather think we make more for less than $200 than above that sum." The House of Worth may very well have built its image upon its couture being worn by the world's wealthiest and most highly visible women, but it built its business on catering to a far larger market sector, the ordinary wealthy woman of moderate income. Anna Pennington Miller's collection contains several examples of these types of garments. I have begun to establish the rank of status of her garments using the House of Worth's in-house costing code and pricing system outlined by Diana Damali in her book Worth, Father of Couture, published in 1980, where every first letter that you can see there that correlates with the phrase has a number underneath it. So CFW, Charles Frederick Worth, une de toi. So this means that the staff inside the maison can price each different material part of the garment, show the catalogue to people that are visiting, but the clients won't be able to see the price or understand the coding system. These archives as well are held at the V&A. They're called the House of Worth Couture House Archives circa 1889 to 1952, and they were collected by curator James Laver. For example, here is Anna's formal afternoon walking jacket in peach wool. It was highly fashionable around 1890, entirely suitable for receiving visitors at Villa Françon or visiting other women at their homes in Biarritz. Wear on Anna's jacket, as with all her pieces, indicates that she wore it more than once. It features a standing collar and fitted sleeves that are slightly raised, gathered shoulders, as was deeply fashionable at the time. The front of the jacket's in a waistcoat style and features cutaway lapels, so there's no need for fastenings because it doesn't close. The cream applique is a mixture in designs of abstract floral patterns and fleur-de-lis on the cuffs. The inside is lined with a peach silk patterned with cream polka dots about 0.5 centimetre in diameter. And here is jacket 18983 from the archives. Material costs are broken down, so at the bottom you can see, even though it's blurry, there's letters next to each part. So the material costs come to 91 francs, with the two additional numbers FAF and FGR coming to 282 and 280 respectively. I haven't quite got to the bottom as to what those two mean, but I think they might be related to labour. Damali says that in arriving at the final price of a gown, the cost of the material was doubled and that of the handiwork trebled. So we're just looking at the material cost, not the retail cost. Jacket 18864 comes to a total for materials of 106 francs, reflecting the additional cost of the applique that's applied to the lapels. By adding applique on this one that mirrors Anna's jacket onto the arms of the jacket 18980, the cost of material rises to 138 francs. The embroidery and applique on this much more heavily embellished jacket, 18964, nearly doubles its price from the last, with the material costs rising to 224 francs, with the embroidery alone costing 140 francs. So that's more than the first two jackets' total material cost. This jacket rises to a different league of consumption. Jacket 18797 materials cost of 322 francs, nearly 50% more than the previous jacket and 3.5 times more expensive than the first, with the embroidery costing 207 francs. And this research is not exhaustive, I'm still working on it. So this one, for example, far more embellished, far more expensive yet again. So it just goes up and up and up and up. Let's have a look at it in perspective. 91, 106, 138, bonjour Anna, 224, 322, how much? Okay? So it looks as though Anna's jacket ranks at either third or fourth. It could actually be third because the applique on the 138 is more complex than on hers, but hers has got some on the lapels. So it's third or fourth, but it's definitely in that league and not in the upper league of the truffled couture. So, yeah. The same design and differentiation conversations continue with her silk ball gown, with sequins down the centre front in a geometrical pattern that then spread out gently across the rest of the gown in a much freer pattern. It has a purple silk taffeta waistband and a purple flower on the left bust that costs, according to these records, about 15 francs wholesale. The corresponding image of the robe tulle 2126 comes to a total of 933 francs. Anna's dress does not have the costly trim that we can see on the bottom there. So whilst employing the exact same sequin design, and you can see it is exactly the same there, it's doubtlessly less expensive. This is proven by the fact that even though gown, this one here, 21222, has far more detailed sequin geometric patterns that clearly belong to the same genre as the previous robes and Anna's, it's almost half the price at around 529 francs without the extravagant trim. So Anna's dress is less expensive than both of these, one of which is half the price of the other, and yet they employ precisely the same design signatures and communicate precisely the same taste values. Worth produced the world's most expensive, bejewelled, embroidered and embellished garments, using France's most luxurious fabrics for international society's richest and most publicly visible women. However, these garments represent a fraction of what was actually made, though they were and remain the face of Worth's design and production, not least because that's all we have in our museums. Evidence to support this assertion comes from a journalist in the Herald Montreal who reported in 1895 that at the House of Worth, during each year, from 6,000 to 7,000 gowns were made and from 3,000 to 4,000 mantles, around 10,000 garments annually. These figures are confirmed by Elizabeth Coleman's analysis of individual garment numbers written on the back of House of Worth labels, where she revealed 9,400 numbers allocated to garments annually between 1887 and 1897. And here you can see that on the back of some of Anna's, we have that numbering system in place. To return to her, central to Anna's couture's culture is the life the Pennington Mellor family built for themselves in Biarritz. Theirs was a self-constructed family identity, built upon a tradition of British aristocratic tastes and activities, including horse riding, fox hunting. John Pennington Mellor was the first person to import foxes into Biarritz. Family portraits, and even an invented Pennington Mellor coat of arms that is embossed through the house. This is Villafrancon here, and this is the coat of arms that's even put onto the door handles. It was an imagined, self-imposed association with London court society that they never could have been part of. Not only was John an industrialist, his wife, Anna Pennington Mellor, was a divorced American whose father was a Methodist preacher who disowned her. But in Biarritz, the expatriate social group was sufficiently wealthy to demonstrate through the luxury of their homes, their lavish entertainment and fashionable dress that they shared the same taste values in the arts, international culture and finery as the royal and aristocratic elite. The couple were well established as the region's finest hosts. 13th of December 1896, the Biarritz Thermal reported that Elizabeth of Austria called upon Her Majesty Queen Natalia of Serbia, Her Royal Highness Frederica of Hanover, and Mr. and Mrs. Meller of Françon. During her stay on the Basque Coast, Elizabeth made many discreet visits to the Meller family. She loved to ride alone in the park. On the 12th of March 1903, Mr. and Mrs. Meller had a very fine ball in honour of distinguished members of the Cosmopolitan Society of Biarritz. Her Majesty Queen of Serbia was present. At the couple's fox hunt ball on 28th of February 1904, it was reported that Madame Meller was stunning in white, diamonds and superb lace. But the only evidence we have of lace is all machine-made. On the 20th to the 27th of October in 1901, it was reported that Anna Pennington Meller attended the wedding of the young and beautiful Princess Catherine Urevsky to the young and handsome Prince Bariatinski on 18th of October 1901 in what was reportedly the greatest event of the year in Biarritz. Princess Urevsky was the youngest daughter of Tsar Alexander II. The newspaper reported that the young princess wore a yellow crepe de chine encrusted with white diamonds, with a large hat, with long white feathers framing her fresh and charming face perfectly. The young princess had magnificent black hair and the most smiling of faces that could ever be imagined. It probably had something to do with her house of worth being encrusted with diamonds. Madame Meller was also reportedly dressed in a costume showing off her slim waist perfectly in a most elegant hat of pale blue velvet. Anna's daughter Hilda, then 19 years of age, attended wearing green with a big hat with feathers, a charming, gentle and distinguished young woman. However, unlike the princess, Hilda's dress was not reported as having been truffled couture encrusted with diamonds. 3 years later, in the issue 7th of the 14th, 1904, the Biarritz Thermal reported the hunt meeting at the Continental Hotel was a great success on Tuesday at 11:30 in the courtyard of the hotel. There were many men and women riders, amongst whom were the Princess Bariatinski and Madame Pennington Meller. Only the following week, both women were guests at the fox hunting ball at Biarritz's Casino Municipal, one of the most prestigious locations. Anna Pennington Meller was admired for wearing a white satin robe with garlands of flowers and ribbons, whilst amongst the guests, we admired Madame la Princesse Bariatinski in a splendid lace and fish scale sequin toilette. Clearly, the princess's dress is heavier in embellishment than Anna's. Worth noted repeatedly as well that handmade lace was one of the most expensive additions that could be made to a gown. In London, I accessed these files. They're the House of Worth's Company volumes compiled in 1895 at the time of Charles Worth's death, one of which contains over 140 calling cards that appear to have been pinned to the wreaths of funeral flowers that were sent to the salon, as well as telegrams and letters from friends and clients. They can be categorised into 4 tiers of wealthy consumers. 3 we're already familiar with: royalty and the aristocratic elite, the plutocratic rich, and popular and highly visible entertainers like Dame Mellinelba. Finally, there was the ordinary wealthy, which included industrialists, lawyers, wives of members of the International Diplomatic Service, civil servants, and Navy and Army personnel. This is the market strata that Anna belonged to. Amongst the royal elite's cards were a string of Russian Radziwills, Bariatinskis, and Yurievskas, all interrelated, several of whom I've just demonstrated were from Anna's immediate social circle in Biarritz. Princess Bariatinsky, whose wedding Anna attended, sent a personal telegram from St. Petersburg to the House of Worth upon hearing of the cruel loss. This makes it clear she was a customer of Worth. And also Elizabeth Coleman has identified that in the Wadsworth Athenaeum in America, there's a circa 1890 House of Worth dress there that belonged to the daughter of Princess Paley, the Countess Sophia Paul Bariatinsky, that's demonstrably truffled couture, because Coleman states it's a splendid court presentation ensemble of satins enriched with metallic threads and freshwater pearls. There are several more examples of ultra-wealthy women in Anna's circle sending telegrams in these files, including Madame de Bernardaki and the Queen Natalia of Serbia. So they too were wearing Biarritz when they were with Anna, wearing House of Worth when they were with Anna in Biarritz. The bereavement calling cards also reveal several ordinary wealthy clients, including a Mr. Henry Isaac Butterfield, a textile and wool trader at the centre of the worsted trade in Bradford, and he had mills in Keighley, Haworth and Stanbury. His American wife was just 16 years old when they married in 1854. The card was sent from their villa in Nice. Mary Roosevelt was therefore an American woman married to a northern textile industrialist living in a French spa resort where she wore House of Worth. This story mirrors Anna Pennington Mellor's precisely. And finally, at least for the moment, in 1910, 2 years after her husband's death and in the last stages of mourning, Anna hosted a party at her beloved family home, Villefrançon, that was again reported in the Biarritz Thermal. The same year she asked her daughter, Hilda, to visit Worth in London for her. At the successful party, supper was served on tables, and at 4 a.m, people returned to Biarritz by car after the superb and splendid party of Madame Mellor. The London branch of the House of Worth wrote about the dress Hilda chose, and they say to her, "The one she liked very much I have had sketched for you in Paris," and enclosed the sketch. The foundation is of ivory satin, veiled ivory chiffon, and again veiled with black chiffon. The over-trimmings are of black tulle with lines of jet. The corsage embroidery is jet and diamonds blanc. The special price for you is 950 francs. 950 francs in 1910 converts to around 190 American dollars, or around £40. This is slightly less than Worth's own admission that the ordinary silk dress was in the region of £50 to £75, and only slightly under the $200 he said were the largest body of orders produced. Perhaps it was this dress, and I think it was, slightly modified from the original sketch. It's black, it's got the jet beading, features black tulle, it's cream underneath, and it's got lines of jet with white diamantes.
Sorry, where is this dress?
This is Anna's. This is Anna Pennington Mellor's dress as well. Yeah. So by considering the size of the House of Worth's product output, the diversity of the salon's clientele, and the case study of Anna Pennington Mellor's House of Worth, I've been able to link the salon's production of garments for the average price of £50 to £70, with far more produced for less than 200 than for more, to the consumption of fried couture worn by a lady of moderate means who was moving with those truffling for Worth. Anna's identity as Biarritz's leading hostess was bolstered by her choice of the House of Worth's luxury goods because it was a public display of her possession of couture capital that enabled her to enter the habitus of Biarritz's social elite that consisted of ballrooms, casinos, and her own grand home where she welcomed royalty, plutocrats and politicians. So whilst Bourdieu notes that when it comes to embracing distinction, and I quote, "None is more obviously predisposed to express social differences than the world of luxury goods," what Anna's collection represents is the way in which those luxury goods can differ, yet still function to offer the validation of distinction. This supports Douglas and Isherwood's extension of Bourdieu's idea that goods are endowed with value by the agreement of fellow consumers. They come together to grade events. They are used as markers, the visible bit of the iceberg, which is the whole social process. In this instance, this couture is the visible marker of the social rise of a disowned, divorced daughter of an American Methodist preacher to a leading socialite hosting the British Prime Minister, the future King of England, and the Queen Natalie of Serbia at her family estate. There's one exception to Anna's fried couture that is truffled. And it's a Van Dyckian child's House of Worth fancy dress costume that would have been Hilda's at the age of around 7 in about 1889. She may have worn it to the famous party her parents hosted for the children of expatriates living in the region. It's expensive, it's embellished, it's beautifully constructed. Look at that. A fine example of a well-known fancy dress theme that paid deference to the most elite artistic tastes that one could associate oneself with. It appears Anna doted on her daughter, spoiling her with the very best money could buy. And this sentiment is not lost when we remember it was Hilda who saved the collection in a desperate attempt to ensure her family history, her childhood home, and her loving memory of her mother were not lost or destroyed in World War II, even if the place they held in dress history was forgotten for 70 years.
Françoise Tétart-Vittu, qui est notre archive vivante de l'histoire de la mode, je pense, va aussi nous parler... je vais vous le mettre. Va aussi nous parler de la couture comme confection.
Là, c'est bon. Vous le mettez en...
Oui, je vais le mettre en
diaporama.
Attendez, ça arrive.
Voilà.
Du coup, les flèches sont ici.
C'est celle-là.
Donc, du coup, on va aussi nous parler de cette conception de couture comme confection. Et nous parlerons ensuite avec Myrène de Biarritz. Et puis, en dernière partie, avec Alessandra de ces American Usurpers who use couture to rise through the social ranks. Donc, je pense qu'on aura de quoi discuter après. Donc, Françoise Tétart-Vittu, historienne du costume, ancien responsable du cabinet des estampes au musée Galliera, qui, je tiens à signaler, a écrit l'excellente introduction au livre de Racinet qui est publié chez Taschen, le costume historique du monde antérieur jusqu'au XIXe siècle, et qui travaille actuellement, comme elle nous a indiqué, un ouvrage sur Worth, ou Worth, comme il aimait bien se faire appeler, qui sera publié par Thames & Hudson à la fin de l'année. Merci Françoise, merci d'être là.
Donc, je vous rappellerai ce soir ce qui a été établi depuis assez longtemps par divers historiens et chercheurs, dont le plus célèbre est Philippe Perrault en 1981, dont vous vous souvenez, les dessus et les dessous de la bourgeoisie, c'est-à-dire la naissance de la haute couture issue directement de la maison de confection, en alliant la vente de la matière première, le tissu, à la création de la couturière. C'est pour cela que la haute couture naît entre 1850 et 1860 dans des maisons commerciales, dites maisons de nouveautés, dont j'ai évoqué la trajectoire de 1810 à 1870, lors de l'exposition tenue au musée Galliera en 1993, au Paradis des Dames, Nouveautés, modes et confections, 1810-1870. Je montre ici la page de titre du livre de Gaston Worte, dont on vous a déjà parlé, directeur de la maison du même nom et membre de la commission permanente des valeurs en douane, édité chez Schex en 1895, tel que je l'avais formulé lors de la présentation de cette intervention. Charles-Frédéric Worte est mort en mars 1895, mais la maison considérée comme leader de cette nouvelle haute couture est référencée commercialement comme couturier sur mesure pour les particuliers avec assortiment d'étoffes. Ce tableau, qui regroupe 8 figures de la haute couture parisienne, donc c'est un petit peu un choix de l'époque, autour de celle du célébrissime, bien sûr, Charles-Frédéric, dont vous en parlez, décédé un an plus tôt, en mars 95, est exemplaire. Ce dernier est flanqué de ses deux fils, Gaston et Jean-Philippe, qui ont secondé leur père depuis 1874 et seront les piliers de cette maison familiale jusqu'à la grande exposition de 1900, lorsqu'ils continueront la tradition en s'appuyant sur la génération suivante, Jacques et Jean-Charles, et une quatrième génération tiendra la maison jusqu'en 1954. À droite, vous avez Charles Pennington Pointer, 1853-1929, styliste de la Maison de Paris, 242 rue de Rivoli, la maison donc Redfern, avec maison à Londres depuis 1878, à New York en 84 et succursale à Nice, Monte-Carlo, Cannes, et devient Redfern Limited en 1892. Au centre, vous avez Antoine Jacques Doucet, dont nous avons parlé, 1853-1929, administrateur depuis 1886 et associé de son père Urbain Édouard. À gauche, Félix, qui est très très célèbre aussi, beaucoup de robes aux États-Unis, Émile Martin Poussineau, 1841-1930, coiffeur, devenu couturier et sa femme modiste, 15 Faubourg Saint-Honoré. La maison ferme en 1912 parce que les fils ne veulent pas reprendre et puis il est suffisamment riche avec les lotissements qu'il fait à Dinard. À droite, Isidore Jacob dit Paquin, banquier, dont la femme Jeanne Beckers, 1869-1936, épousée en 91, est la créatrice de la maison du même nom. 3 rue de la Paix, et enfin Ernest Rodnitz, que nous on a un peu oublié, et Louis Rouff. Donc, les coulisses de la mode, ça c'est une évocation de la haute couture parisienne sans les noms, mais on devine Redfern et les frères Redfern, Doucet, parce qu'il y a des évocations d'anglais, peut-être Rouff ou Pinga en bas avec des bagues aux doigts, parce que selon Capiello, Rouff avait plein de bagues. Selon Goncourt, Pinga avait des bagues aussi à tous les doigts en 1883, lorsqu'il y va avec Donitis. Les mannequins sont vêtus de robes noires, bien sûr, comme c'est le cas en bas là. Donc, voyez que depuis le début du siècle, les modistes et les couturières doivent avoir des salons luxueux en étage, car ainsi, on se démarque de la boutique. Ici, c'est clairement la maison Vorte qui, lorsqu'elle reprend de l'extension après la commune, au 7 rue de la Paix, avec des aménagements au premier étage, au-dessus de l'entresol, toujours en étage, entrée par un escalier dans la cour. Donc, la couturière, c'est une personnalité. Là, c'est un type. C'est la couturière à la manière de physiologie. C'est une vue stéréo. Ça, c'était quand même des femmes élégantes, mais enfin, c'est vraiment un type. Donc, je vous présente quelques couturières célèbres. Emilia Simler, c'est un tableau qui est à Cracovie. C'est une couturière polonaise. Vous voyez qu'elle est extrêmement chic. Elle est en robe de bal. À droite, vous avez Eugénie Pofic-Moga, qui est très célèbre et qui a habillé donc la princesse de Metternich. Et Madame Dufourmentel est assez célèbre aussi, vers 1880. Et bien sûr, j'ai mis Hélène Curtis de Moret, que je trouve très chic, alors qu'en fait, elle est surtout célèbre pour ses ventes de catalogues. Là, je ne vais pas m'étendre là-dessus parce qu'on en a beaucoup parlé. Donc, ah ben non, j'ai été trop vite, ça, ce machin-là. Oui, non. Bon, enfin non. Donc là, ce sont des robes. Donc la confection, la diffusion, c'est une grande affaire de la confection, mais aussi de la couture. Donc cela commence par la confection depuis les fabriques. C'est pas nouveau du tout, puisque cela existe déjà pour les habits et les robes de cour tissées ou brodées au XVIIIe siècle. D'ailleurs, vous avez tout à l'heure la façon de noter des frères Vorte. C'est tout à fait ce que l'on faisait dans les fabriques de néonèse. Et sur les échantillons, on voit des lettres aussi, parce que comme ça, le vulgum pecus ne peut pas savoir exactement les prix. Donc on continue au XIXe siècle par les robes de soie, les imprimées ou les robes brodées sont envoyées en kit. Donc vous avez des exemples d'Alsace, là, la robe brodée envoyée aux États-Unis, la robe du City of New York au milieu, qui est une robe tissée à Lyon, attribuée à Vorte, et des maquettes pour robes brodées d'avance. Donc c'est surtout pour l'exportation et les magasins des villes européennes. Donc, là, qu'est-ce qui est important pour copier, on peut toujours acheter des robes et envoyer des robes, mais c'est beaucoup mieux d'avoir des patrons parce que c'est plus plat, ça tient moins de place, on peut les envoyer. Donc, l'importance de la presse. Donc, voici un spécimen de dessin pour le catalogue de Madame Desmoret. Et à gauche, c'est dans un journal allemand, mais ça existe aussi en France, mais en plus petit. C'est plutôt les journaux étrangers qui vont commencer plus tôt. Donc, vous voyez, c'est Madame Desmoret, donc, qui fait donc donc vous pouvez lire, on montre des catalogues avec des patrons découpés que l'on peut acheter, donc on peut les copier plus facilement. Donc là, c'est toujours la même chose, que ça soit donc la confection ou bien les maisons de couture, c'est la même chose. La grande maison de blanc, je vous ai mis la grande maison de blanc parce que c'est une robe brodée, avec en dessous une carte de Meunier, dont c'est le directeur, qui a donc un directeur sur Philadelphie. Et au milieu, vous avez une robe de Vorte qui paraît dans le journal Le Printemps. Et à droite, une robe d'Irma Simon, qui est une couturière. Donc, c'est extrêmement fréquent, que ce soit les uns ou les autres. D'ailleurs, c'est la même chose. Voici des modèles Vorte donc, dans le Harper's. Ça existe depuis longtemps, hein, parce que Gaston Vorte, en 1895, en parle, et il parle des modèles en mousseline qu'ils vendent aux fabricants et négociants étrangers, qui les payent 800 à 1500 francs pour les reproduire. D'ailleurs, il explique que dans le Sunday World aussi, c'est encore Charles Frédéric qui était encore vivant, que les manufacturiers m'envoient un patron, c'est pour le tissu, modèle d'échantillons et d'étoffes. Si ça me plaît, j'en commande une grande quantité en exclusivité, et l'achat en grande quantité incline le choix des autres firmes et donne une mode. Tous ces modèles sont faits en mousseline noire et blanche et ensuite copiés dans le tissu que j'ai sélectionné. Mais cela est déjà très ancien hein, et bien organisé. Parce que déjà en 1826, dans The Thomson's Monthly Selection of Parisian Costumes, on annonce qu'il y a chez Madame Roden des French, Swiss and English costumes are brought out every month in full-size paper patterns, completely made up so as to serve as correct guide to copy from. La maison Gagelin, où a débuté Charles Vort, produit encore 700 000 modèles reproducteurs. C'est ce qu'on appelle des modèles reproducteurs qui sont expédiés dans le monde entier en 1867. De même que les catalogues de magasins sont publiés à 100 000 exemplaires, alors que les journaux ne le sont qu'à, mettons, à 1000. C'est donc très important. Bon, mais cela, c'est vraiment bien organisé. Donc là, on peut dire que les modèles de Vort là, de 1878 qui sont dans le Harper's ne sont pas très différents de ceux du catalogue du printemps que vous voyez sur la droite. La couture peut-être étant plutôt sur le créneau international que sur Paris et la province. Bien que ces échanges commerciaux soient très importants dans tous les grands magasins des années 1870-1890, où existe un très très important service d'envoi d'échantillons, de vêtements mi-confectionnés, de rendus, enfin il y a toute une administration de cela. Et encore, vous voyez, en 1893, le Moniteur de la mode, qui est un journal, invite à visiter l'exposition de printemps de son salon de patrons modèles inédits, qui ne paraissent jamais dans un journal et sont utiles pour les couturières de province qui trouvent trop cher d'acheter des robes faites et veulent présenter quelques modèles à leurs clientes. Les acheteurs étrangers faisaient le voyage à chaque saison et avaient la possibilité, eux, d'acheter des modèles qu'ils pouvaient vendre, enfin ça sera l'étoile par la suite, qu'ils pouvaient vendre dans leur magasin sous leur propre griffe ou bien avec accord de la maison parisienne. Enfin, il y a eu beaucoup de fausses griffes et on en trouve beaucoup aux États-Unis, même pour les chapeaux. En fait, qui fait cela? Alors, le dessinateur, créateur, j'en ai déjà parlé autrefois. Ce qui est bien connu de nous, parce que c'est l'extension du métier de dessinateur industriel, depuis la fabrique jusqu'à la figurine de mode, dite de mode par les couturières, puis les couturiers, qui achètent ainsi et pour des figurines qu'ils peuvent soumettre à leurs clientes comme proposition. Nous en avons parlé en son temps pour le dessin de mode sous toutes ses coutures à Galliera en 95. Ensuite, ainsi, on pouvait faire l'économie d'un studio de dessinateur. Mais en fait, souvent, certains associés pouvaient tenir ce rôle. C'est le cas de Jean-Philippe Vort, puisqu'il savait dessiner, puisqu'il était allé chez Corot. Et ici, vous avez Félicien Rops, qui est bien sûr quand même un graveur très connu, et qui était ami de ses très chers amis du Luc, et il a fait des modèles pour leur maison de couture. Et vous voyez que c'est un modèle déposé. Et il avait une maison avec 50 ouvrières en 1895. Ils ont fait 3 fois le voyage aux États-Unis. Donc, à gauche, c'est Charles Pilate, c'est un des dessinateurs industriels les plus connus, qui a travaillé pour différentes maisons. Alors, dans la presse, évidemment, ce qui est très important aussi, bien sûr, c'est aussi c'est l'importance de la presse qui est très importante. Et nous avons le dessin qui peut être dans la presse comme la vie parisienne, qui est allusif, parce que c'est seulement sur le côté que l'on voit que Marcelin a mis le nom de Léontine du Luc. Il faut vraiment le deviner, en 1864. Par ailleurs, dans le petit courrier d'âme, vous avez donc la publicité pour la maison Moga, qui habille donc la nouvelle ambassadrice qui vient d'arriver, de la princesse de Metternich. Parce que la robe la plus connue avec des bandes noires qu'on attribue à Vort est de Madame Moga, en fait. D'ailleurs, elle a fait les procès de pullulent à ce moment-là, parce qu'on attribue à l'un ce qui est à l'autre, et ça fait des procès. Vort et Bobeg en font, et Madame Moga en fait aussi. Donc, la presse, c'est très importante. Vous avez l'art de la mode, qui va plus loin, reproduisant, qui se veut artistique, une peinture d'Alfred Stevens, dite La Parisienne, c'est d'après un tableau de Stevens, et ça c'est une phototypie, dite La Parisienne en mars 1881. Or, cette peinture a sa source dans une photo prise dans l'atelier du peintre d'un modèle en robe de Vort. Même pose que la peinture, selon un procédé très habituel aux peintres. Elle existe aussi de dos. Les personnes qui possèdent cette photo disent qu'ils ont aussi la photo de dos. L'importance de la photographie qui se substitue au dessin pour le copyright, évidemment. Dans les journaux de mode, il y a toujours des avancées techniques très, très fortes parce qu'il faut aller vite. Donc, automatiquement, dès qu'on met de la phototypie à la place de la photo, et puis la photo, ça va plus vite. Voilà. Donc, mais ça coûte moins cher parfois. Donc, ça se substitue au dessin pour le copyright. Vous avez Une confection donc c'était des dépôts au tribunal de commerce, ça c'est de 1874, donc la confection est vue de deux côtés, puisqu'elle est un peu différente de chaque côté, face et dos. Et l'autre, c'est beaucoup plus tardif, donc c'est la maison Fred. Donc ça continue en haute couture. Maintenant, je vais vous montrer simplement quelques aperçus de quelques papiers commerciaux indispensables à la diffusion. Donc la maison Roger en 1888, c'est une carte publicitaire d'envoi aux clientes et c'est l'emploi de l'anglais, parfois de l'allemand, de l'italien, de l'espagnol, a été utilisé très tôt dans les cartes adresses de mode et dans les en-têtes de factures, de publicité, de cartes adresses, parce que on dédique souvent English spoken et cela des années donc 1840. Vort prend soin d'indiquer en français et en anglais « Please direct all letters to Mr. Worth personally ». Pour la maison Roger, il s'agit d'informer les clients de la nouvelle adresse pour la présentation des nouveautés de la saison. Cela s'adresse bien évidemment aux clientes américaines qui sont les plus appréciées à Paris puisque c'est elles qui ont l'argent. Par ailleurs, ici une carte adresse de Redfern de New York, puisqu'ils ont une maison à New York, qui explique très en détail les produits proposés. Ceci est conforme aux annonces des magasins américains qui, depuis les années 1850, sont en lien direct avec les maisons de couture de Londres et de Paris. Voyez aussi cette facture qui est assez intéressante d'un commissionnaire de Paris, Isaac Bloom, qui a une adresse à Paris, rue Martel, vous voyez, dans le quartier du Sentier, où se trouvent les grossistes en tissu, et qui, en 1890, vous remarquez que c'est très drôle parce qu'il a encore les armes impériales pour bien indiquer qu'il s'agit de fournitures parisiennes. Donc ça fait foi. L'Empire est loin quand même. La célébrité, évidemment, a eu pour corollaire la contrefaçon, peu arrêtée par l'utilisation progressive de l'étiquette dite griffe, qui commence pour les vêtements plutôt vers 1860. C'est Pinga qui commence, Vort, il n'y en a pas vraiment avant 1869, puisqu'il y a quelques Vort et Bobeg, mais qui suscite la création de fausses griffes, de la plus haute fantaisie. Alors on en trouve, il y en a dans le livre d'Anne Coleman sur les maisons Vort, Doucet et Pinga. Elles sont vraiment très fantaisistes. Du moment qu'il y a marqué rue de la Paix, pour les chapeaux c'est pareil. Du moment qu'il y a marqué rue de la Paix, accolé parfois à Londres d'ailleurs, ça fait foi. Alors là, je voulais vous montrer ces personnes. La protection devient donc plus effective vers la fin du siècle et la Chambre des négociants commissionnaire sur l'ensemble des exportations en dresse un tableau très sombre en 1882. Les importateurs essayent de passer des vêtements en contrebande et l'on a retenu la saisie en mars 1892 à New York de robes, accessoires, bijoux à la dernière mode pour le printemps de 1892. Apportée par Lizzie Nast, je ne sais pas si elle est proche de Nast, passagère du Britannique, et Mrs. Albon sur la Bourgogne, mais aussi par Mathilde Sabaye, employée de Redfern pour la maison de New York. Alors, vous voyez, on pouvait passer en contrebande, ça évitait de payer les droits. Alors on les mettait après, elles étaient mises en vente après. Sinon, de toute façon, les magasins américains, que ce soit Macy's, là, je ne veux pas reparler de tous les importateurs, mais depuis 1860, ils ont tous des rayons ils sont en rapport avec les maisons de Paris. Tous les couturiers accordent des interviews aux journaux. Les Vort ont toujours fait, en 74, en 89, en 1904. Et le 24 mars 1912, au New York Times, Arsène Bonner, que vous ne connaissez peut-être pas, mais qui est le directeur de la maison La Ferrière, parce que Madame La Ferrière, elle existe peut-être, mais enfin, je ne sais pas quand, peut-être au début, au sujet du goût des Américaines. Donc, il faut dire que les Américaines sont des vraies Parisiennes. Enfin, je crois que quelqu'un va vous en parler tout à l'heure. C'est toujours un rôle publicitaire. Donc là, je termine donc par ces deux personnes qui semblent très importantes à l'époque, c'est Aubert et Deuillet. Georges Aubert, il est auteur de nombreux livres sur le commerce et membre du jury d'exposition de Saint-Louis en 1904. Et Deuillet, dont le parcours est exemplaire, en 1883, il est à la Grande Maison de Blanc, il est représentant à Londres de la Maison Jourdan en 85, puis directeur commercial chez Calosseur, et il crée avec Gustave Baird sa maison au 18 Place Vendôme en 1898. Vice-président de la Chambre syndicale de la couture, confectionneur et tailleur pour dames et expert auprès des douanes. Alors, Georges Aubert était administrateur d'une société exportatrice et fit de nombreux voyages aux USA et en Afrique du Sud. En 1898, il publie sur le commerce extérieur de la France qu'il juge dépassé et promeut le modèle américain en publiant en 1910 un livre sur la finance américaine. Ami de Deuillet, qui est président en 1912 donc de la Chambre syndicale de la couture parisienne, qui vient d'être créée donc le 14 décembre 1910, il conseille à Benjamin Guggenheim, qui est mort dans le Titanic, d'investir dans la maison Deuillet. Et en effet, après, c'est une période qui bouge. Mais la vieille chambre syndicale de la couture et de la confection pour dames et fillettes, qui avait été créée en 1868 avec pour président Dreyfus, qui était très important, et comme vice-président Vorte, nouveautés confectionnées et tabouriers et tissus, devient la chambre syndicale des couturiers, confectionneurs et tailleurs pour dames par l'Union des tailleurs pour hommes et dames le 15 janvier 1911. Donc le premier président de cette chambre syndicale est Léon Reverdeau, qui est une maison commerciale importante, mais quand même secondaire, et le deuxième est Georges Deuillet. En 1913, le dépôt des modèles photographiés est systématique et a pour corollaire une attention accrue au risque de contrefaçon, dont on a un écho dans le Ladies' Home Journal de mars 1913, qui a été republié par Dress dans le volume 4 de 1978. La carrière d'Aubert finit lamentablement, car ayant investi dans les maisons de couture en faillite, Germaine Patat, Poiret, vous voyez, Agnès, Baird, Drécole, Deuillet, qui a repris Doucet en 1927 sous le nom de Mirande. Et toutes ces fusions aboutissent à la liquidation en 1931 de toutes ces maisons prospères en 1900, mais qui ne résistent pas à la crise financière. Donc, pour conclure, il me semble qu'on peut... Pour vraiment avoir une idée plus réaliste sur l'organisation de la haute couture, il faudrait étudier les entreprises comme les historiens des entreprises industrielles ou les banques, car sinon nous faisons une agréable dissertation romantique sur ce qui est avant tout une réussite commerciale à un moment donné, avec tout ce qui a pu la conforter ou empêcher sa réussite. Le problème est de trouver alors les archives comptables, qui sont parfois perdues, parcellaires ou considérés comme privés, trop arides à exploiter et méprisés. Je pense que l'histoire des maisons de mode ne serait qu'à ce prix. Pour le reste, nous faisons de l'histoire de la mode un genre quasi littéraire, un peu anecdotique, un peu sociologique, gender. Bon, voilà, c'est tout. Merci de votre attention.
Miren Arzulaz, who's a researcher at the University of Deusto and is currently writing her PhD on Balenciaga. Miren was previously former head of collections at the Cristóbal Balenciaga Foundation and is one of the foremost specialists on Balenciaga. And today she will be talking to us about Biarritz, Côte Basque Parade, Haute Couture in Biarritz, 1855, 1939. And I think that what she will say will have correspondence with what E.J. Scott previously spoke to us about. So I'm looking forward to hearing.
Well, I'm also going to talk about Biarritz a lot, and hopefully I won't bore you with the same ideas, wonderful ideas that we've heard in E.J. Scott's presentation, and I will try to approach fashion in Biarritz from another angle. At the end of the 19th century, the so-called Côte Basque emerged as a centre for health and leisure among an international elite, led by the most prominent European royal houses and their courts. Promoted by Empress Eugénie in the 1850s, Biarritz soon became the capital of glamorous leisure and sportswear, a trend which artists, intellectuals, and wealthy socialites were eager to follow. By the early 20th century, La Côte Basque had turned into a sort of microcosm of luxury, conspicuous consumption, and fashionable lifestyle. On this new fashion stage, clients performed and couturiers experimented, often resulting in new trends that found their way to Paris and therefore altered the usual circuit of Parisian haute couture. Tourism gradually burgeoned in Biarritz during the first half of the 19th century. While sea bathing had historically been common practice among Biarritz residents, for city dwellers, the coast was a place merely for contemplation well into the 18th century. It was only from 1750s onwards that English physicians and hygienists started to praise the therapeutic virtues of seawater, promoting the practice of sea bathing and taking holidays by the seaside. Private correspondence demonstrates that Biarritz was already popular for sea bathing as early as 1765, but it was not until the 1830s that visitors from distant locations arrived in rather considerable numbers to rest, heal, and of course, socialize. Victor Hugo was amongst the early tourists of Biarritz. His impressions give us a glimpse of the relaxed and rather carefree atmosphere that was beginning to emerge in Biarritz in those early days, and I quote, "The bathing at Biarritz is the same as at Dieppe and at Havre, except that there is a certain freedom provoked by the lovely sky and tolerated by the mild climate. Women wearing the latest Parisian millinery on their heads, with lace veils over the faces, enveloped from head to foot in great shawls, enter with lowered eyes one of the canvas tents with which the shore is covered. A moment afterwards they come out, with bare legs, dressed in a mere tunic of brown wool which often scarcely falls below the knee, and skip laughingly down to the sea. This freedom has a charm of its own. Both the village girls and the pretty grisette of Bayonne bathed in such chemises, often full of holes, without troubling themselves overmuch about what the holes may show or what the chemises may conceal." Powerful royals, old aristocratic families, and the educated new bourgeoisie had been the leading proponents behind all the select coastal summer resorts in Europe. Just like the brothers of William IV in Brighton, England, the King of Prussia in Kolberg, Germany, and the Duchess of Berry in Dieppe, Belgium, Napoleon III and Empress Eugénie of France decided to spend their summers in Biarritz, a move which would prove decisive in the extraordinary development of tourism on the Basque Coast. Napoleon III and his wife, the Spanish noble Eugenia de Montijo, were invited by local authorities to visit Biarritz the year following their wedding in 1853. Eugénie already knew Biarritz well, for she had accompanied her mother in the summer of 1835 and had been eager to return ever since. Keen to please his enthusiastic consort and charmed by the Basque Coast himself, the Emperor Napoleon III decided to build a summer residence in Biarritz, inevitably named Villa Eugénie. The rather modest palace, modest in imperial terms that is, was built in brick and stone and located on a promontory overlooking a long beach rarely frequented by the local Biarritz bathers. The edifice was rapidly completed and ready to move in by the time the Empress returned the following summer in 1855. This stunning portrait of Eugénie with the imperial palace in the background shows the special bond that existed between the French Empress and Biarritz. From the time it was inaugurated, the palace became the social venue for the most distinguished families in Europe, who attended the lavish balls, country outings, and leisurely boat rides organized by the imperial palace. Biarritz soon became one of the most sophisticated leisure and entertainment destinations in Europe. Royals, aristocrats, wealthy industrialists, politicians, artists, and intellectuals arrived in Biarritz every year, drawn by the beaches, thermal baths, casino, first-rate hotels and restaurants, and of course, the luxury establishments that had been rapidly developed, some of them on a par with European capitals such as Paris or London. This commercial expansion continued to grow firmly even after the demise of the Second Empire and the exile of the imperial couple in 1870. Biarritz became one of the most desirable destinations on the international scene by the end of the 19th century and enjoyed a particularly thriving golden age from the early decades of the 20th century until the outbreak of World War II in 1939. But beyond its leisure attractions, health assets, and social appeal, Biarritz became a fashion scene of its own. An haute couture display that was subtly staged on the seaside promenade, the bathing parade, golf course and tennis courts, cafe terraces, and casino rooms. The modern urban experience that emerged in the carefully planned cities of the 19th century took on a new dimension in a place where promenading, observing and being observed became an essential aspect of human existence. An American spectator reporting for a Washington newspaper in 1910 described the most important performance in the daily routine of any self-respecting Biarritz habitué, and I quote, "The Biarritz day begins with the stroke of noon, when suddenly, magically, everybody appears strolling on the boardwalk, where there was not a soul the minute before. The boardwalk is of dressed grey stone, and to promote, you must sit still. 9/10 sit, while 1/10 obliges. They take turns in promenading the latest fashions, that all may observe, mark, and inwardly digest." End of quote. It was in this favourable social and economic context that the most prominent haute couture houses of Paris identified an invaluable opportunity, commercial, that is. Although their usual aristocratic and wealthy clients made sure to equip themselves with the appropriate wardrobe for the season prior to travelling, couture houses soon started showing their collections outside of Paris in the salons and hotels of Biarritz, eager to attract a wider clientele among the cosmopolitan Biarritz colony. This colony was composed mainly of English, Russian, and Spanish residents, as well as the usual French and American visitors, jointly establishing a most bizarre and equally fashionable settlement. This commercial scheme was taken a step further when some of the Paris houses decided to actually cross the French border and show their collections in the neighboring resort of San Sebastian, its twin sister on the Spanish Basque Coast, and where the Spanish royal family had established its summer residence in 1890. And this is an image of such a branch of Worth in San Sebastian, and you can see here the Spanish Queen Maria Cristina coming out from a Worth show in San Sebastian. So the most prominent Paris couture houses would find a representative in San Sebastian and premises, and then proceed to set up business for the duration of the summer season. These businesses were aimed at a well-heeled Spanish clientele that included the ladies of the Spanish court, aristocratic families, and the wives and daughters of the prospering Basque middle class. All the houses preferred to organize exhibitions of the season's latest creations in the San Sebastian's luxury hotels. In this way, customers were able to buy the latest Paris fashions directly from the couture houses without having to wait for it to be in stock at the stores in San Sebastian or Madrid. Just as Cristobal Balenciaga himself proves, the emergence of tourism on the Basque Coast also resulted in the development of local couture entrepreneurs. Such is the case of the famous Mademoiselle Vallée. Here you see an invoice from Mademoiselle Vallée from 1894 to the Marquesa de Casatorres, who's precisely the lady who sort of discovered Balenciaga when he was a child. Pascual Millán, a regular Spanish visitor and a passionate chronicler, dedicated a whole chapter of his book, Biarritz y sus cercanías, published in Madrid in 1897, to this extraordinary Basque couturier, Mademoiselle Vallée. As Biarritz, and I quote, "As Biarritz is the gathering place for the most elegant women from every country, many of them Parisians, it is here that we find the latest trends, and many of the fashion whims are born in the salons of Place Saint-Eugénie, where Mademoiselle Vallée exhibits her creations, which are then taken everywhere, from the French capital to Madrid, where the modiste travels to 3 times a year, from the modest provinces to the most demanding royal courts. The house of Mademoiselle Vallée is thus very important to Biarritz. To summer in Biarritz and not have an outfit from her workshops will, at the least, cast a dubious shadow on your stay here. And if confirmed, you will be accused of showing poor taste, of not knowing how to spend your money, of not knowing how to appreciate that tangle of precious fabrics, skins, laces, the latest, the richest, the most stylish materials produced by modern industry. The name Mademoiselle Vallée will forever leave its mark on the history of Biarritz," end of quote. This is a very passionate account of Mademoiselle Vallée. And, well, a proof that she actually made a mark in the history of Biarritz is that in a beautiful promotional book about Biarritz in 1927, there's this portrait of, by then, Madame Vallée as one of the stars of Biarritz. Although the spring and summer seasons were the most popular among Biarritz visitors, the Basque resort soon attracted a regular flow of tourists throughout the entire year. In 1913, Claude Chéry, a Biarritz regular himself, talked about Biarritz in the following terms, and I quote, "Biarritz has a series of different seasons, each full of interest and each one capable of filling the pockets of hotel managers and shop owners. In the spring, Biarritz is London by the sea. It is almost entirely English. The late King Edward set this fashion, and it has survived his death. Of course, it is true that there are many English at Biarritz all year round. Many of the prettiest villas belong to English people, as we have actually seen earlier." And he continues, "They rival the Russians in this respect." And he continued saying, "Then in the month of July, the Spanish begin to flock to Biarritz. In August, the place is almost purely Spanish. It is in September, when the Trouville season closes, that the Parisians go south. September is the most chic month at this plage, not the most amusing perhaps, but from the point of view of dress, certainly the most elegant. And," he adds, at Saint Sebastian, also September is an ideal month," end of quote. Therefore, Biarritz could count on loyal, wealthy and demanding clients from January to December, which meant that opening branches would be a very profitable investment. By the early 1900s, all the best Parisian haute couture houses had secured their commercial presence in Biarritz, but it was not until the 1920s that the trend among couturiers to establish their own stable premises became well entrenched. And this is a photo that I believe we've seen in the earlier presentation. One of the first houses to open a branch in Biarritz was inevitably the historic House of Worth. Famously patronized by Empress Eugénie, Worth kept a close eye on Biarritz as it developed into an international resort and a new fashion scene. The unique Worth and Paquin archive kept at the V&A archives in London holds, as we have seen before, several photographs dating from the 1920s of the distinctive Worth branch in Biarritz. The salon was located at the Cadre, one of the most prominent hotels in town, built on the seafront in 1910, facing the Villa Eugénie, by then transformed into the prestigious Hôtel du Palais. The interior of the Biarritz branch was designed in a historical style, in sharp contrast with the modernist feel of the Caen branch, which we can see here, also a photo of the 1920s. An article published in French Vogue in August 1922 featured photographs of the Biarritz interior, describing its style in the following terms. And I quote, "The large Basque fireplace with its fleur-de-lis coat of arms adds a local touch rather unexpected in a couturier's salon. Not only the house's architecture, but also its interior decoration are in the Basque style and show impeccable taste." And the article goes on, "Beyond the large arcade doors, we spy a corner, the luxurious salons of the House of Worth in Biarritz, decorated in the local style. In the foreground, various accessories, all recent creations, await the high society wearers," end of quote. And this is just an image of the feature of Vogue in 1922, with small images in detail of the interior. In 1922, the House of Worth was still being run by the founder's sons, Gaston and Jean Worth, both of them retired precisely in 1922, who were forever loyal to the heritage of the house and the tastes of their traditional old guard clientele. The Biarritz branch seems to have been designed to reflect precisely these deep-rooted principles, with evident references to the same neo-Basque architecture that prevailed in many palaces and villas of the aristocratic clients in Biarritz. This is a completely different interior from that of the house of Madeleine Vionnet in Biarritz, reproduced by La Cassette de Bonton in this drawing by Tayat from 1924. And also from this Jean Régnier interior. This is in 1927, the October issue, which you can see here, of French Vogue, reproduced the interior of another radically different couture establishment in Biarritz, the Jean Régnier fashion house. A former tennis player, she had successfully specialized in fashionable sportswear, the new unstoppable rage in the fashion world. In line with the spirit of our collections, Vogue illustrated some of her new designs for the coming season against the backdrop of her Biarritz establishment, which you can see here, and I quote, "For the decor of her Biarritz boutique, Jean Régnier used the interior of a yacht, faithfully reproduced down to the last detail," end of quote. Similarly, an advert for the house, also dated 1927, showed a young woman playing tennis dressed in a design by Régnier. It was the embodiment of freedom of movement, freedom of mind, of a newly acquired female independence. Jean Régnier represented a new generation of couturiers such as Coco Chanel or Jean Patou, whose modern design sources were drawn from sports, menswear and workwear, and who soon became major competitors for traditional houses like Worth. The excellent research undertaken by Joanna Sanon on Jean Patou's enterprise has shed some valuable light on his largely unknown activity in Biarritz. According to Sanon, Patou opened his house in Biarritz in August 1925, occupying the old town hall building, which was refurbished by the renowned architect Louis Sou. And you can see an image of the renovation works of this old town hall building, making preparations to open the house of Jean Patou. And I appreciate Joanne's help with this too, because she sent me this wonderful image of the Patou house in Biarritz. Patou felt an intimate connection with the Basque country, which he came to know through his Basque brother-in-law and associate, Raymond Barbas. Such appreciation led him to build a house designed by Sou himself in the Basque town of Ustaritz. The vast property named Berriotz was completed between 1929 and 1932, and Patou decided to move in from Paris after acquiring all the furniture in a single purchase through a Basque antique dealer. Unlike the collections for the Cannes and the Monte Carlo branches, which were designed at the Patou headquarters in Paris, a special Biarritz collection was both conceived and produced in Biarritz on the premises, according to accounting records from October 1933 identified by Sanon. Surely, Patou's presence in Biarritz resulted in a greater autonomy of the Biarritz establishment, both in commercial and aesthetic terms. Unfortunately, this extraordinary activity was short-lived due to the premature death of the designer in March 1936. Writing for the Boston Globe in 1910, 4 years before the Great War, Idalia de Villiers praised the fashions scene at Biarritz. And she addressed the differences between Biarritz and other fashionable French resorts, such as Trouville and Deauville. And I quote, "Biarritz, there are few, if any, seaside resorts where one sees more attractive toilettes than at Biarritz." And she goes on, "In its own way, it is quite as fashionable as Trouville and Deauville, but it does not at all resemble either of these exotic watering places. At Trouville, one receives the impression that the seafront was made for the sole purpose of displaying lovely and original costumes. People bathe in the sea, of course, and they crowd the sands, but the women who bathe seem to do so simply and solely to show off their eccentric and very becoming bathing dresses. But at Biarritz, the fashionable women, for the greater part, like an open-air natural life. They swim, they play golf, they play tennis, they ride and drive. And I am speaking of women of many different nationalities: English, American, French, Spanish, and Russian. Everyone is active at Biarritz. Because of this brisk activity, one finds at Biarritz, at this season, the most attractive and practical tailor suits for autumn and winter wear," end of quote. She was partly intrigued by this different attitude that she found in Biarritz as opposed to Deauville or Trouville. So she returned to the matter in yet another article written 4 years later in August 1914 for the American newspaper The Sun. And she speculated in the following terms, and I quote, I have often wondered at this difference of atmosphere. I have heard people say that it is created largely by the presence of English women at Biarritz, but this explanation cannot be accepted, since there are comparatively few English people at Biarritz in August. There are numbers of Spaniards, many French women, a great many wealthy Russians. So she concluded, and I quote, women in Biarritz seem to have become more genuine, more like true sportswomen. And she directly relates this carefree and active attitude to certain styles of dress which are absent elsewhere. And I quote, there is a touch of man-like utility about the pure white linen costumes worn on the Grande Plage in the early morning. The wide-brimmed sailor hats seem just a trifle more severe and correct. Extremely attractive shoes and stockings are worn at all hours of the day, but they do not verge on what might be described as fancy. In a word, life at Biarritz is eminently sane and breezy. I'm going to skip these because I think we had lots about worth in Biarritz today. So the daily life of these men and women in Biarritz was structured around a diverse array of leisure and sport activities. Bathing, walking, strolling, playing golf and tennis, riding and hunting were all essential pursuits of the Biarritz experience, all of which required a carefully planned and appropriate wardrobe. All the main couture houses in Paris soon started designing collections conceived for the particularly active lifestyle their clients now led during the Biarritz season. The archive of the House of Lanvin offers invaluable information about designs that Jeanne Lanvin herself conceived specifically for Biarritz during the 1910s and 20s. Laure Arrivel, head of heritage at Lanvin, dates the opening of the Biarritz branch around 1918, 2 years after the opening of her Deauville establishment. Between 1918 and 1928, Lanvin designed the so-called Biarritz albums. The collections in these albums were inspired by her clients' needs and their sporty life in Biarritz, the carefree attitude that prevailed in the Basque season, and even some of the most characteristic features of Basque culture, art, and landscape, such as Basque traditional dress and some of the distinct colors of the Basque textile tradition. And I couldn't help making this comparison because I'm Basque. So it was in this typically carefree yet sophisticated atmosphere of the Basque coast that Gabrielle Chanel arrived in Biarritz in 1915. After her successful debut in Paris as a hat designer, she opened her first boutique in Deauville in 1913, 1 year before the start of the Great War. A passionate horsewoman who was incurably drawn to tailored suits and English-style men's athletic clothing, Chanel made sports style her trademark. Stylish clothing and hats were soon followed by a full collection of sports designs that she debuted in September 1915 at her newly opened couture house in Biarritz at the Villa Larralde. And this is a photograph of a Chanel branch much later from 1931. But moreover, the First World War gave rise to a microcosm of luxury, consumerism, and fashion on the Côte Basque, added to the intensive tourism activities in Biarritz and San Sebastian, which were already historical by then, was the golden exile of entrepreneurs, artists, writers, and all manners of celebrities escaping the horrors of war in a brazen attempt to avoid reality by dedicating their lives to leisure, amusement, and above all, unlimited spending. These unexpected conditions created by the war made it the perfect time for the fashion enterprise. One of Chanel's biographers wrote, and I quote, "It did not take long for Gabrielle to realize how right she had been. She was inundated with commissions from the Spanish court, Madrid, San Sebastian, Bilbao. The Biarritz workshop was producing at full capacity. At the end of the year, Gabrielle, proud of the victory that was hers and hers alone, returned to Paris. She supplied the Biarritz house directly, where she had left her sister Antoinette in charge with full authority. In Paris, one of the workshops worked exclusively for the Spanish clientele. Like a military leader who moved reserves according to the needs at any given moment, Gabrielle would send personnel from Paris to help with the extra work in Biarritz, and even riskier effort, she would pester Basque mothers to allow their daughters to go up to Paris despite the Zeppelins. The mothers would eventually give in, By the beginning of 1916, Gabrielle had nearly 300 people working for her. So thus, Biarritz and the Basque Coast offered Chanel an ideal laboratory for her sporty, masculine and relaxed vision of dress. In Biarritz, she found the perfect atmosphere, the ultimate attitude and the right conditions to test and promote her new creations and make her business thrive. Biarritz was decisive in the making of Coco Chanel. Chanel, Patou, Aurigny, they all found a fertile playing ground in the beaches and promenades of Biarritz, where a particularly active lifestyle and a rather relaxed attitude had marked the existence of Biarritz residents since they first started arriving in Victor Hugo's early days. It is a fact that since the early days of sea bathing and tourism in Biarritz, its varied and most cosmopolitan visitors have repeatedly emphasized the feeling of freedom that prevails in this part of the Atlantic coast. The innumerable accounts in literature, private correspondence, or the press refer to a deep-rooted, nonchalant attitude, a genuinely active lifestyle, a sort of independence of mind that possesses all those who choose to reside in Biarritz and its surrounding towns. Visitor chronicles also very often link this liberating atmosphere with a distinct type of dress, invariably described as practical, comfortable, and complicated, masculine yet equally chic, as well as with a certain way of moving, behaving, or of conducting oneself. From the bathing beauties described by Victor Hugo in his travel writings to the English and American fearless sportswomen and the strolling ladies of the Russian and Spanish courts, from Chanel to Jean Régnier and Jean Patou, leisurewear and sportswear have historically characterized a certain Biarritz style. The emergence of Biarritz as a fashionable resource in the mid-19th century contributed to the appreciation and dissemination of this relaxed style, which all main couture houses were quick to identify and incorporate into their collections. The trend for a young and sportive style promoted in the 1910s and 20s by a new generation of designers found fertile ground in Biarritz, where their bold proposals were tested, shown and displayed, and from where they returned to Paris in the finalized form of an unstoppable and socially transforming trend. Thank you.
So now we'll finish this session with Alessandro Vaccari, who comes to us from the University IUAV in Venice. Alessandro is the Associate Professor of Fashion History and Theory, and who has published a book in English, Fashion at the Time of Fascism, Italian Modernist Lifestyle, 1922-1943, in 2009, and more recently in Italian only, unfortunately, or fortunately for those who read Italian, obviously, Fashion and the Discourse of Fashion Design, which was published in 2012. And as she is currently working with her university in Venice on a larger project about fashion in cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maude, and thank you to all of you and thank you for your. I would like to thank you in advance for your patience because it's a very long session. So, okay.
Coffee's afterwards.
So after we will come back to Paris, and we will talk to tourism, guidebooks, and women in Paris. In the early decades of the 20th century, American women had broad access to imported Parisian fashion and information on haute couture. However, traveling to the French capital and directly experiencing its maisons of haute couture was, for a privileged minority of them, a fundamental component of their cultural education and the social requirement. This paper investigates how haute couture was perceived, presented, and promoted through an analysis of early 20th century travel guides to Paris written by North and South American women for their fellow country women. The analysis mainly drove on A Woman Paris, written by Mary Abbott and published in 1900, So We Are Going to Paris by Clara Elizabeth Lowlin, published in 1924, and Paris is a Woman Town by two North American writers, Ellen Josephy and Mary Margaret McBride, in 1929. Written by women for other women willing to visit in the French capital, these guidebooks provide a totally female perspective on the city. Another guidebook that the analysis considers is La Vida de París por una Argentina, published in Buenos Aires in 1889 and written by an anonymous author, probably an Argentinian woman. Haute couture is one of the better known and investigated phenomena of fashion history. However, after the postmodern cultural turn, this haute couture-centered fashion history has often been criticized. Among the criticism in this history, on the one hand, approach fashion through an Eurocentric perspective, and on the other hand, focuses on its elitist aspects. The inclusion of travel guidebooks written by women as a sources of the study of haute couture helps overcome these two limitations. With regard to Eurocentrism, travel guidebooks provide a transnational view of haute couture, avoiding the risk of limiting the discourse to French boundaries. In addition, travel guidebooks offer an alternative to the point of view given by American buyers and the professional fashion editor of US magazines like Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. Such guidebooks question the idea that studying haute couture means dealing with a history of exclusive product made for a few people. Seeing haute couture to the eyes of American travelers' consumers allows us to explore it through the perspective of upper middle class consumer. Mary Abbott, for example, explained how her guidebook is not designed for American millionaires, but, I quote, for the average American woman, not too poor to enjoy herself in a varied and even moderately luxury way in Paris, end of quotation. The guidebook writers often provide hints on how to circumvent the haute couture exclusivity, for instance, by revealing the scarcely known end-of-season sales at the Maisons or the parallel and more affordable fashion copy system. Drawing on such relatively unexplored sources, this paper aimed to shed light on the historical and cultural practices involved in the international consumption of Paris haute couture. Particularly, it analyzes the American women construction of the Parisienne, a figure deeply related to fashion and a source of imagery and identification. The paper is divided into 4 sections. Section 1. How to read the women's city. In the late 19th century and early 20th century, Paris was the European capital that American women most desired to visit, and consequently was a destination necessarily included in their journey. Travel to Paris was for these women a crucial means for learning how to be modern and fashionable. A direct knowledge of Paris fashion was, together with shopping, a key aspect of women's goals in the fashion cities par excellence. From Baudelaire to Benjamin, Paris epitomizes the relationship between fashion and modernity. In the case of travel guidebooks, the modernity to which those women aspire to a travel experience can be seen as contributing to a kind of emancipation. According to the American scholar Ingrid Fay, North and South American women of the early 20th century perceived Paris as more liberal compared to their cities of residence. The most appealing feature of the cities consisted of what Fay calls, I quote, spatial freedom of Paris, with its offer of numerous locations in which respectable ladies could pass the time and meet new people, such as the boulevard, the department store, tea rooms, and cafes. Travel guidebooks written by women for women were relatively rare in the early 20th century in a sector traditionally dominated by men writing for a male audience. This is true not only for guidebooks dealing with antiquities and the site of artistic and historic interest, but also for the first pocket-sized guidebook that began focuses on the topographic reality of the cities, helping visitors walk through it. Paris travel guidebooks written by women seem to move away from this tradition. All the guidebooks examined here neither highlight the city's topography nor exclusively offer cultural or historical itineraries, not provide the reader with graphical tools like maps. On the contrary, they put daily life at the center of their discourse, describing it in words and sometimes in photographs. This is the case of A Woman Paris, whose subtitle reads A Handbook of Everyday Living in the French Capital. In the preface, the author introduces her book as addressed to American lady who, contrary to what men do, go to Paris, I quote, for reasons not literary nor bohemian, and without any wild haste to see the city's monuments. Clara Elizabeth Laughlin published in 1924 a successful So You Are Going to Paris. When she described the reasons that lead her to write the guidebook, the author pointed out the need to move away from travel guidebooks, I quote, inclined to be exclusively historic and which harass the travels with continuous "here lives so and so." Taking for granted encyclopedic culture, she said, memory phenomenally tenacious, feet tireless, and appetite uninsistence. End of quote. Laughlin proposes instead a book which, is a quotation, beside indicating whether a certain stroll was 1 mile length or 5, suggests where we might break it with a lunch or tea. Laughlin claims women's right to a different way of traveling, focus on specific cultural interests such as fashion, and on a particularly pleasure-oriented way of discovering the cities. It is a claim of autonomy and emancipation. Section 2, the Parisienne of elsewhere and the haute couture chic. American women in Paris were looking not only for fine dresses, but also for the immaterial aspect of the haute couture, such as the way to choose and wear a dress as a Parisian would. Paris is often associated with women and also with pleasure, love, fashion, and shopping. In the discourse of cultural industry and fashion media, Paris is a woman, as London-based scholar Agnès Rocamora recalls, by quoting the text of the 1927 French song Ça c'est Paris, in which Mistinguet sings that Paris is a blonde who everybody loves. The figure of the Parisienne, young, frivolous, and fashionable, is the female embodiment of the city. It is overall a powerful figure of the imagination that has dominated the narratives of modernity. Less investigated is the figure of the aspiring Parisienne, whom I refer to as the Parisienne of elsewhere, a figure that the above-mentioned travel guidebooks volunteer to educate if she's actually traveled to the French capital or dreams to do so. These guidebooks, in fact, show how one can be Parisian everywhere, provided she possesses a specific knowledge of haute couture and its rituals. La Vida de Paris, for example, give particularly importance to the figure of the Parisian, constantly comparing it to the woman of Buenos Aires. The author invites the aspiring Parisians of Buenos Aires to absorb the aptitude of French Parisian through she acknowledges that the latter as a specific creator of the French capital. This is an image of the personification of the Parisian and the Paris World Fair in 1900. This means, according to the author, avoiding a passive acceptance of all the new styles imported from Paris. It is not true, the author says, that the Parisian of Paris always pays attention to the new fashion and is ready to buy it. On the contrary, she, I quote, does not accept fashion unless she likes it. And here lies the secret of her well-renowned elegance, end of quotation. The conclusion drawn by the author is that the so-called Paris fashion is often specifically made for foreigners. All the guidebooks taken into consideration in this research promote the figure of the Parisian through other immaterial values of the haute couture, the elegance, the chic, and the newness. Paris is a woman town, for example, concentrates on what American women look for in Paris fashion and the motivation that guides their choices. Fashion and the magic of shopping are the first topic the guidebook deals with in more than 70 pages dedicated to couturier, mannequin, personal shopper, etc. For the very beginning of the guidebook, it emerges clearly that the author assumed American women were not going to Paris to spend money for fashionable clothes only, but for chic. The first chapter opens, in fact, with the story of a society woman from New York who went to Paris in the 1870s with the one purpose of bringing her favorite Indian shawl to the famous couturier Charles Frederick Worth and asking him to drape it around her body. Paris is a woman town is intended to help American women overcome their inferiority complex toward the women of Paris, and it does so by recalling the key role that North American fashion magazines and buyers were playing in controlling French haute couture. I quote, "Let us assure that while the clothes you buy are made in Paris, a good deal of the inspiration from them comes from this side of the big pond." Section 3. Travel guidebooks written by women provide accurate and detailed information on haute couture rituals. For example, these guidebooks advise not shopping on the day of arrival and looking for a seat as close as possible to the door from which the mannequins stepped into the salon during the fashion show. In a study on the relationship between haute couture, art, and commerce, the American scholar Nancy Troy has highlighted how the haute couture maisons of the early 20th century built their image of being culturally and socially exclusive places by relying on a combination of avant-garde, aristocratic luxury, and modern marketing strategies. The travel guidebooks examined here offer specific suggestions on how to get access to the maison, explaining that these are not exclusive as they pretend to be. The guidebooks ironically stress the fact that the real difficulty is, in fact, I quote, to get away from them. We learn from the author of Paris is a Woman Town and from Clara Laughlin's 5th edition of You Are So You're Going to Paris That is, one stays at a luxury hotel, such as the Crillon or the Ritz, she will receive fashion show invitation every morning. However, the author says, the most exclusive maisons, I quote, deplore this form of advertising, end of quote, and require what the new customer be introduced to their vendors by regular customers in order to be allowed to cross, they say, sacred gates. The guidebook written by Josephine and McBride is a valuable source of historical information on the Parisian haute couture houses of the late 1920s. The book provides a rare and lively account of their daily activity from a customer's perspective, and it describes the process in full detail from the arrival at the hotel to the participation at the fashion show until the wardrobe purchase in Paris is carried on board the transatlantic ship returning to the United States. What matters for these guidebooks is helping the reader and potential haute couture consumer choose the maison most appropriate to meet their aspiration and physical demands. The friendly advice the two authors give to all the imposing women is to choose Vionnet, while Lanvin is the most indicated for young women. Nicole Groult and Maggie Roof are for the advocate of, they said, modernism. Germain Lecomte is the right choice for those preferring wearable clothes, whereas Augusta Bernard is for the ultra-chic. To be sexy, the rule is spend your travel checks at Jenny's. If you have always dreamed of Paris clothes that look a little dangerous, for those who go to work want to be aristocratic, while customers looking for style, I quote, individual and about 3 seasons ahead of the style trend, naturally gravitate toward Louis Boulanger, end of quote. The guidebook's authors often provide their advice with some irony, as in this description of Chanel. If a woman wants to catch her husband, she goes to Chanel, who knows exactly what men like. Chanel models have it doubtless because Chanel herself has plenty of the same. Since for the guidebook's author, Paris is a woman's city, female couturiers come first in the list of the recommended maisons. Male couturiers are appreciated for their quality, which in some cases include their good looks. The guidebook presents Jean Patou as the handsomest couturier in Paris. We saw the photographic portrait of Jean Patou in the Miran presentation. But also Jean Patou is considered also the most careful editor of his collection and the keenest to design dresses that captivate American women. The guidebook describes the fashion show held in the maisons from the point of view of the American female audience. The atmosphere is that of women's world. The interior space of the maison, described as fragrant and almost unreal, welcome the international female audience to the daily ritual of the show at 10:30 a.m. and 3 p.m. approximately. Apart from the mannequin, the other female protagonist of the show is the vendors who assists customers in their purchases. For some mysterious alchemy, the authors explain with admiration the vendors seems able to address the customer personality in order to better help her in choosing. With another key female figure in the maison, the fitter, the customer enter in an intimate and silent dialogue after the dress is purchased. For the fitting, the guidebooks recommend wear your best underwear. This is to impress the fitter, who, being a temperamental Gallic, will take great pains if she likes your lingerie. This sounds frivolous, but isn't. Section 4. Another aspect that the Paris Travel Guidebook reveals of the haute couture is the role it plays among the pleasures that Paris offers to the travelers as part of a totally absorbing urban experience that includes places for high society and entertainment. In the guidebook's Paris is Woman Town, fashion emerges as common thread that runs through Paris and the street, for example, those crowded with the people queuing from 7 in the morning for the haute couture sales. Even when the guidebook provides the reader with practical information about the hotels, it never forgets haute couture, as in the case of the Hotel Rhin at 7 Place Vendôme, described as interesting because of the, I quote, great dressmaker to the left and to the right of it, end of quote. It is always fashion that takes the lead in a woman's experience of Paris through the entertainment and mundane pleasures that the city offers. Describing the Café Fouquet, the guide said, after an afternoon or morning floundering among the dressmaker collection of the neighbor, it is a balm to the soul to sit on the terrace here and sip something cool and delicious, daydreaming how beautiful you are going to look in the new green tulle. By the means of consumption, women have gained access to public space historically reserved for men. It is with great satisfaction that the guidebook author claimed that in 1920s, Paris women could go everywhere alone or with other women. For those seeking male company, there are the gigolos. The guidebook Paris is a Woman Town provides information about the gigolos' days and night fees and how to safely find one through one's own bank branch, travel agency, personal shopper, and the local headquarters of the American fashion magazines. There are rich and show-off women, the guidebook say, who pay up to 500 francs, approximately equivalent to 300 euro at the end of the 20th century, the 1920s, just to dance once with the most fascinating gigolo. The guidebook presents an open-minded and cosmopolitan ethnography to the men that could one meet in Paris, pointing out activity to enjoy with them, such as dining and especially dancing. The Swiss were good in dance and sports, Italians were the best dancer in Europe and the most prolific writer of sentimental letters. Oxford students were the best match for tea dances, while the South Americans had the reputation of being dangerous, though they were handsome and danced divinely. The guidebook Paris is a Woman Town recommends the music hall, Empire, Paris Casino, Palace, and particularly the Folies Bergère, where a woman alone is advised to go in the afternoon instead of the evening because it's more discreet. But Paris, the guidebook says, is never so thoroughly a woman town at the tea time. The most elegant tea service was at the Ritz, while the Claridge and the Ambassador Hotel, there was garden tea service, a restaurant, and the music hall. The weekly program with all the detail of the high society event also provide information on the appropriate dress for attending them. Monday, for example, was the opera day for which an evening gown was a must. Dresses, dances, food, and alcoholic drinks are all part of the promise that Paris makes to women. There, they can acquire a complex cosmopolitan identity through the knowledge of and consumption of haute couture and modernity. Thank you.
can you stay in your seat, and can I ask the other speakers to come up briefly? We're running a little late, but we'll do 10 or 15 minutes of questions, and it will impinge on your coffee time, but I think our questions might be good. So thank you very much to all of the speakers and their wonderful presentations. Do we have enough seats? Yes. So this idea of circumventing haute couture exclusivity, which I think was a thread that ran through the papers. Françoise, elle est partie? Ah oui, elle est là. Mais est-ce qu'on peut demander? Yeah. Well, I'll give my seat. No, I should be up here. Françoise, oui, vous voulez venir? So this idea of circumventing haute couture exclusivity, which ran through the 4 presentations with ads. I saw an ad, I think for Redfern, where he was talking about moderate prices and being able to sell for a few days' notice. Also with the travel guides, counseling American women how to best approach these couture houses without, being afraid of stepping across the step. Another idea which ran through the 4 presentations, spatial geography. So moving from Paris to Trouville or Deauville and then to Biarritz, moving through Paris, which we saw this morning with Kasha's presentation, and then moving into Paris as a foreigner. And a third theme, which I think was really apparent in all of these presentations, was votre appel à faire l'histoire de l'économie pour faire l'histoire de la mode, une certaine business history que je sais que M. Zatman, David partage également à l'IFM. Et cette idée de histoire économique de la mode qui, du coup, nous permet de revenir sur cette mythe de la mode comme la domaine exclusive d'une certaine élite riche et qui pourrait s'apparenter de plus en plus à une sorte de confection, comme vous le dites, vous tous très bien. Donc avec ça, j'ouvre au public, si vous avez des questions. Oui. Donc je pense que, est-ce que quelqu'un vient avec un micro? Il y a une question ici.
Thank you, Alexandra. It was really interesting. I have a question for you. Now, I know that during the 1920s in the US, there was a strong reaction against everything that is Parisian. And I know, like, Cardinal Frey, he launched a competition in Herald Tribune, or maybe New York Times, saying that we need to find the American dress. Because the hegemony of Paris has to be eliminated. Now, listening to you, which was really interesting, it seems like American women didn't care at all about it. The only thing they wanted was actually to imitate the La Parisienne. In the meantime, there was this kind of quest for American national identity that was going on. So I don't know if you have touched upon that in your research.
Not yet, because of the transnational perspective. I just was looking Paris inside what happened what happened to the foreigners when they came to Paris. But sometimes the guidebooks you can feel what you are saying in the guidebooks, for instance, when they say, but it's the Americans that construct Parisian fashion. And so the author of some guidebooks, especially the 1929, they are very aware about this point, the importance of the commerce and the importance of basically the North American system in constructing the Parisian fashion. But I think the myth of the travel to Paris was so important in the 20s, and some of these guidebooks have a lot of editions. So that means that a lot of people were interested in doing this kind of a grand tour de la mode, something like that.
maybe it's also the reason behind this reaction in the US to try to find a counterbalance to this enormous interest for the French style. Yes, thank you.
Thank you too.
I have a question to you, Mr. Scott. Thank you. I really adored what you have shown us, because going in these details will allow us to better understand all this history and not only remain with the big myth of House of Worth was one of the most expensive and so on. How would you say could we get this on a bigger basis? Because it's highly interesting to see it for one detail, but are there ways you would suggest how people should try to investigate in their field where they are working for, I don't know, for houses like Balenciaga or others, or less known? Are there any recipes you could give us?
I think one of the things that is precious about Anna's collection is that it really is quite a rare example of the fact what's been saved in the museums is extremely precious. And so we don't get access to these stories a lot, but it's the photographic archives. If you can crack the costing system, that is the code, then you can go through and you can delineate when there's a break between a level of consumption and it goes up to another level of consumption. It became, you know, you don't need Anna's collection to do it with the Worth ones that are in London, for example. And I would assume if you could find out that costing system that's hidden to the public in other houses, then that might be one way to get into it.
I mean, does anyone know of another archive that's similar to this?
Yeah, I don't know of something quite like that, but at the Rhode Island School of Design, there's a collection that was formerly owned by the Cherokee sisters, and they had a small, you wouldn't really call it a couture salon, but they were a dressmaker in Providence, Rhode Island, and they were making the couture copies. So they were actually buying all of the embroidered pieces, and the entire archive was left in situ when one of the sisters died. And so it's this little time capsule of 19-teens through the 30s, and it has everything. It has records, it has embroidered panels, it has, and it's kind of just, you know, along with what you were saying, it has all this really wonderful in-depth information about the transmission of the Paris couture to the American market as well. So, and there is a book about it, actually, so that RISD published, the Rhode Island School of Design Museum published a number of years ago, and I worked on it as an intern a long, long time ago. Yeah, but it's a fabulous archive. Yeah.
Est-ce que vous connaissez des archives comme ça en France?
Non.
Ouais. Non.
Non, moi non, il y en a peut-être, il y en a probablement, mais...
Bah, parce que même à la fédération, je pense qu'ils n'ont rien. C'est extrêmement rare.
Mais,
ah, pardon.
Oui, ça, la chambre de commerce a brûlé. La chambre de commerce a brûlé, les papiers ont brûlé en 1897. Moi, je sais pas.
Bah, y a l'exposition que Sophie Grossier a fait, Roman d'une garde-robe. À Carnavalet, elle avait le livre de contes d'une vendeuse, Alice Alom, de la maison Cher-Huit, entre autres. Et du coup, elle a pu présenter la liste, le prix de vente de certains modèles.
Les livres de clientes, c'est vrai, c'est pas toujours... enfin, dans le livre justement du Vianney, on dit que les archives... C'est très dommage que l'Ever n'ait pas gardé les livres de clientes. En 1952, à Londres, apparemment, ils ne les ont pas pris, les livres de clientes. C'est quand même bizarre. Ils ont cité la Belle au terreau. Enfin, c'est dans le livre du Vianney que c'est cité, dans the Archive of House of Worth. Mais... Et puis aussi chez Patou, aux archives, ils ont 3 gros livres. Ils avaient 3 gros livres il y a 20 ans. Il y avait 3 gros livres de clientes des années 20. Ils doivent toujours les avoir. Je pense que M. Demouy les a gardés. Mais c'était seulement 3.
It's part of the speech I cut out because of time, that Sophie Grossard revealed senior vendeuse for the salon Hortense Joly. She kept a handwritten list of 114 private addresses, clients from England, America, South America, Canada, Argentina, Chile, Italy, Ireland, Russia. So this is beyond the court circles, well beyond the court circles, and she goes through and lists them, and some of those clients match up with those calling cards as well.
I was going to, where are those, is that also at the VNA?
Yeah, but I got this from her research, yeah.
And I mean, Myrène, have you found client archives in Biarritz?
No.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately.
Yeah. Elusive. Une question, peut-être une dernière question avant la pause.
Bonjour, j'ai deux questions. Une pour Myrène. So Myrène, you talk about Coco Chanel in Biarritz, but have you heard about Paul Poiret going there? And for another question for Françoise. Françoise, vous parlez de phototypie sur un slide, donc j'aurais aimé savoir ce qu'est la définition d'une phototypie. Non, vous ne savez pas?
C'est un procédé, c'est une époque vers 1880 où il y a beaucoup de procédés photographiques variés. Donc, il y a des phototypies, il y a des photos. Non, je ne sais pas. Monsieur Gaudriot, dans son livre sur la gravure de mode, en parle un petit peu. Il y a beaucoup de procédés semi-photographiques à ce moment-là. Donc, il y a quelque chose avec le soleil, ça s'appelle on laisse au soleil et ça finit par photographier. Comment ça s'appelle? C'est pas la. Non, c'est un autre nom que phototypie, il y a un autre terme.
Merci. Myrène?
Of course. Like most couture houses were present in Biarritz in one way or another, either with season branches or with more permanent premises. And Paul Poiret was one of them, of course. And actually, Antoine and Nicolas from Dicta, they have a very interesting document of Paul Poiret sort of advertising for specifically. I mean, in Biarritz, it was very common, all these balls and costume balls, and it was a reproduction of Paris social life in Biarritz. No? And there were many, many costume balls, and there's this advert from Paul Poiret, 1920, advertising, sort of trying to attract clients to specifically design costumes for balls at Poiret's branch in Biarritz. So, it was his sort of kind of event that he was specialized in, especially in the 1920s.
But did he have a shop there or some?
Yeah, this is very confusing. There's some information actually also about Patou. There's this villa called Casablanca in Biarritz, which you have different sources saying that it first was the branch, or housed the branch of Paul Poiret in Biarritz in the early 1920s, and then that it was occupied by Patou in 1922. But since this is unclear, especially because Patou didn't occupy this Casablanca house ever, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know if it's if the information about Poiret is reliable either. So no, he didn't leave much of a trace, I have to say.
Merci beaucoup, merci à tous nos speakers. Thank you very much.
Cette journée riche. Je commence en français et je vous donne la parole en anglais tout de suite. Oui. Donc, nous accueillons Marie McLaughlin, qui est senior lecturer à l'université de Brighton. Elle travaille beaucoup sur la mode pendant la Seconde Guerre mondiale, si j'ai bien compris. You're working on, yes, you teach, but you work on fashion during World War II.
Oh, at the moment, yes.
At the moment. And now you will talk. Let's go on English. You will talk about Piguet, Paris Couture on Swiss time. But before that, let me introduce the topic of this part of the afternoon. We will talk about les méconnus de la haute couture, et c'est un sujet absolument fascinant, sujet auquel des étudiants de l'IFM ont consacré un article que je vous recommande, qui se trouve sur Internet, sur le blog de l'IFM, qui s'appelle « Le bleu est à la mode cette année », et ça s'appelait « La mode est un sport de combat ». Et dans cet article, qui date de 2014, on s'est intéressé aux couturiers, aux créateurs oubliés, mais qui ne l'étaient pas du tout à une certaine époque. Ces lucioles qui, pendant un moment, et ça c'est le drame de la mode, sont sous les projecteurs et puis qui disparaissent ensuite, au bout de quelques mois, quelques années. Un des cas les plus tragiques, c'est de croiser Claude Montana dans ce quartier précisément. Aujourd'hui, on le croise près du Nouveau et bon, c'était quand même ça reste quelqu'un de très important, mais son destin est assez tragique. Et puis il y en a beaucoup. France-André Vie, je ne sais pas si vous vous souvenez. Voilà, des gens qui pourraient être dans un roman ou dans un livre de Enrique Villamatas. Je ne sais pas si vous avez lu Bartleby et compagnie, les gens qui ont écrit un livre, et puis après, voilà. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. My French is so bad, I don't know whether that's disagreed completely with my paper. I shall hope not. I'm saddened to hear that Piguet is méconnu. He was once a very major Paris couturier in the 30s and 40s. His house was relatively short-lived, 18 years. It was in the early 30s, it was the third largest Paris couture house. In the early 40s, it was the third largest Paris couture house after Lelong and Lanvin. And Hubert de Givenchy, who was engaged there as an 18-year-old in 1945, described Piguet as a great man, not only in height, but in talent and good taste. The ambience of the house was calm, reserved, elegant, and very refined. Everything breathed luxury and elegance. Monsieur Piguet was rarely seen. If he crossed the salon, he did not linger. He was very shy, perhaps because of his great height. He was always very well dressed in grey flannel, which together with his silver hair gave him an air of distinction. And elsewhere I've heard he always wore a white carnation. One could compare the house to a well-administered Swiss bank, said Givenchy. The Piguet style was sombre, simple, refined, good taste, never extravagant, always very wearable. Lots of navy blue with trimmings of white linen. And I want you to hold that thought of the navy blue with trimmings of white linen. On the 15th of June, 1951, Piguet called his 400 employees together and announced the closure of the house. He said it was the worst day of his life. And Paris Match, a month later, ran this picture with the headline, "The Death of a Couture House." And here you can see Robert Piguet as this tiny figure in the middle of a house of 400, I think there were. This research is work in progress, and it grew out of an interest in Molyneux, really. Molyneux is my love. And I'm currently working on a book, Paris Fashion in World War II, which has a chapter by our very own Sophie Coquillin down here, which we hope to come out next year. And all through the research and putting things together, coming across Piguet like this in Maude Bass-Krueger. Our main point we're making is that the Paris boundaries, the influence of Paris couture was greater than the history books generally say. The boundaries were more porous. And so really we're researching to how they were porous and why and how Paris couture was seen in other parts of the country. They're often bracketed together, Molyneux, and thank you very much. I've tended to think of him rather snobbily as the sort of poor copy of Molyneux. And you sometimes find them not where you expect to find them. So this is 1941, in the middle of the war, and here's a Molyneux coat in Paris, Maude Bass-Krueger. His house stayed open in Paris, although he had a large London house and did a lot of work for the British government, including the British Utility Scheme and so on. And here's Piguet in American Vogue in 1944. So they're both in just about every edition of American, British, and French Vogue throughout the 40s, which I think is extraordinary. They catered for the same sort of thin, rich, sophisticated women who wanted classic luxury and who had, or whose husbands had, the sort of social lives that needed smart but not overstated clothes. So first of all, I must thank Anna Corder, the directrice of the Musée Suisse de la Mode in Yverdon-les-Bains. This is the museum that holds the archive of Piguet. It's his town of birth. And I went to visit there, and she was unbelievably helpful. The museum was opened in '82, and it has 10,000 garments, which are housed on the top floor of this building in the centre of the town. Quite cramped, but amazing holdings. Things make your heart beat faster, you know, that sort of thing. Once a year, it holds a temporary exhibition at the Castle Museum, but for most of the time, none of its holdings are on show. They're all in reserve collection. There's work currently being done to create an online catalogue. The Piguet paper archive is here housed under climate-controlled conditions in the basement of the library. It has sketches and photographs, and this is Piguet's talent, really. He was a talent spotter. Many of the designs are by his assistants, who, amongst others, were Dio, Castillo, Givenchy, and Marc Bohan, as we've said. I'm very indebted to the book Piguet, Un prince de la mode by Jean-Pierre Pastori, which was produced in 2015 following a retrospective of the museum, and it's a very comprehensive biography. So Piguet's early life, he was born here in the town, the fifth son of a very well-to-do family in the area. He was a sickly child. His eldest brother was 20 years older than him. His four brothers were a chemist, a lawyer, a pharmacist, and a banker. And the family still live in the house where he was born, which is here in the centre of the town. He was born in 1898. Some histories, including the Met Museum, New York, say 1901, but it is 1898. The town had 8,000 inhabitants. It was a small spa town, lakeside spa town. The Piguet family would be known to everyone in the town. They had a family bank that bore their name and many business interests in the area. And the watch company is a distant part of the family. It's not actually to do with the couturier. They were a Protestant family, which Givenchy said was an encouragement to his own very reluctant family when he went to work there. But he was sickly and lacking in affection and discovered fashion. He spent his final years at school going to tennis parties and spent all his pocket money on fashion magazines. So this pedestrianised old town goes back to the 18th century when it was a resort. It's a resort town, really, for the likes of, at that time, Georgiana, Duchess of Devonshire, visited. When he was a child in the years before the First World War, it would have been a quiet but prosperous town, with genteel summer visitors taking the waters and visiting the theatre, which is a very prominent grand building in the centre of the town. So he would have been very keenly aware of the need to dress for the grand occasion, the sort of women who needed grand gowns but didn't want anything too ostentatious. He was declared unfit for military service during the World War I. Here's the family name, can be seen throughout the town. And barely 19, he had an exhibition of batik textile designs in Lausanne, and advertised for interiors. And I think we start to see this passion for fabrics. He went on to Geneva. He took his batik silk pajamas to show Jean Lanvin in 1918, 1919. He first went to Paris in April 1918. She said whatever career he followed, it would not be in fashion. Apparently she laughed about this in later years. So at the end of October 1919, with the help of his elder brother Edward, he opened an establishment in Avenue Montaigne selling batiks, capes, tea gowns, etc. And they sound to be the sort of fabrics that Liberty and so on were doing at the height of perhaps the 1890s or 1900. They held twice weekly fashion shows and afternoon teas. It all sounds rather like a bohemian chic salon rather than a shop. After 2 years, I don't think he was making any money. The family seemed to have pulled the plug, and he went back to Yverdon, slightly glumly. But he soon got a job at Poiret, and this is interesting. I think these are his designs for Poiret. And William has sort of make me feel désolé, I think is the word, by saying there's some very, very good holdings on Poirier at the Palais Galliera of Piguet and Piguet's relationship with Poirier and drawings and so on, which I haven't seen, I confess. But I feel here he learned a certain theatricality. We've got to accept, I think, that at this point Poirier is perhaps no longer at his height, and he doesn't stay there very long, but he does acquire this certain showmanship. He moved then to the British House of Redfern. Now, Redfern had branches everywhere, but Paris was the only one that was a couture house. It was founded in the Isle of Wight, which seems an extraordinary place to start a couture house. We don't start in the Isle of Wight. It has a regatta once a year that's attended by, or still attended by, royalty from all over the world. And it started with yachting dress. And so this reminds us of, later on, about his little blue and white dresses. Piguet was to say, I hate the little sailor dresses. So maybe here, though, he acquired an eye for this. And these are the sort of clothes that Redfern was doing when he arrived. Redfern's partner in Paris was 70 at this point, and Patou and Chanel had... This was a time of a big change in fashion. It was looking rather old-fashioned. So whether they brought in this young blood, which I suspect they had, to revivify the label. But here he learned this was the sort of thing he would have been artistic director when Redfern was producing this sort of thing, which is very different, as you can see. He'd hardly been there before two major events occurred. His brother Edward died, and he married Mathilde Henrique. 3 years earlier, his brother Alfred, the ingenious chemist, had died prematurely, and now Edward, the lawyer, was dead at 45 years old in April 24. He was his closest brother, and it was rumoured perhaps not to have been an accident. Because of mourning, Piguet's wedding in September was very, very quiet. Matilda was born in Cairo to a very wealthy bourgeois couple. Her mother was English, though everyone thought she was French. She was brought up in Paris. They'd known each other for years. Her friends implored her not to marry him. They felt this was a mistake. At 34, she was 8 years older than him, very sociable and outgoing compared to his extreme reserve. In 1928, that's just 4 years later, Armand, another brother, is killed in a road accident, and a year later, his father dies of a heart attack. So now he has one brother left with a wife and 5 children. In 1929, Redfern dies, and Piguet has more responsibility. He's only 31 or so at this age. Mathilde realizes Piguet has a parallel life. I think he was very clearly gay. And they decide to live separately. She resists a divorce because she feels that she would become a social outcast. In 1932, the Paris headquarters of Redfern closed. There was a hiatus between 32 and 36. The books tend to say, and then he went out and set up his own couture house, not mentioning that actually Redfern closed. Maybe that prompted the setting up his own couture house. So in 1933, he sets up at the Rue de Cirque, and many of Redfern's clients follow him because they're no longer shopping at Redfern. He has his inheritance from his father, and he has the support of 2 close friends, Fanny and Alexander Clavel, who he met whilst he was at Poirier. They're his very close friends for more than 30 years. What I think is interesting is they own a Swiss textile. They are Swiss, and they own a Swiss textile company, Calvel and Lindemeyer. He starts the house in 33. His first collection is January 34. And in his staff, he has his nephew, his 22-year-old nephew, Georges, son of his brother Victor. Alexander Cavell is the administrator, and his other senior employees are from Zurich and Geneva. So it's a very Swiss house. This is quite interesting, really, in the 30s, even though he's in the heart of Paris and all his fashion education is French. Mathilde refused to appear, but for publicity purposes they had a pre-collection which L'Officiel described as very artistic, extremely simple, each dress made from only one fabric. And again, I think that's interesting, his relationship to textiles. The accessories were equally simple. He started with 30 premieres, and this tripled after the first year. He bought 3 sketches from Pierre Balmain, who was paid 90 francs and a bottle of Guerlain, which he gave to his mother to convince her there was money to be made in fashion. So here we see this very pared-down sophistication that was his trademark. And this drawing is by his close friend, Barrand. He very quickly developed an international clientele. Here's an invitation to the American buyers to come. You can see they would be showing to the American buyers, and this is a suit held at the New York Met. In 1934, the year after he had opened, the big society event of the year was the marriage of the Duke and Duchess of Kent. Prince George, confusingly called, was a third son of George V. The eldest brother was King Edward VIII, who became the Duke of Windsor. The second brother became King George VI, and the Duke of Kent was the third brother. And Molyneux dressed the bride and all the wedding party. Piguet did dress some of the guests, and he resolved to have a London house, even though his clothes were sold in Harrods. And he took 47 Grosvenor Street. His neighbours were Molyneux at 48 and Worth at number 50. So this is a man with ambition, great clarity of vision. The British press described him as very young. That was all they said. He liked British clients who he saw as more daring than French ones. But despite this, the British business was not wholly successful, and it lasted less than 2 years. Went into voluntary liquidation starting in March 38. And he told his nephew they would be completely finished on the 15th of August 39. That was 2 weeks before war was declared. But in Paris, he was acquiring a new clientele, the court of Egypt, Greek princesses, very high-class French clients, and the Duchess of Westminster. He had titled mannequins. Remember, he's a very young man, but from a very high, not almost aristocratic family, who I think were not best pleased to have a couturier as a son when they had a banker and a lawyer and so on. His father had said, at his age, I was wanting to take clothes off women, not put them on them. So, but he clearly had the manner to make people feel very comfortable. He designed the textile display for the Swiss pavilion at the Paris World Fair, and again 2 years later in Zurich. And he constantly supports and promotes the Swiss textile industry, designs shoes for ballet. 1938 is a very busy year. In July, the Queen Elizabeth and George VI visit Paris with the royal princesses, and this is when the Queen Mother, the mother of our present Queen, her own mother had just died, and Hartnell remade her entire Paris visiting outfits, all in white. So it was the white collection that is still celebrated in the UK. He dresses some of the guests to meet the Queen and King, and he participates in the present for the princesses of a wardrobe of 300 little couture garments made for the dolls France and Marianne. And this is a little doll's house collection that's made for them. And to do that, he uses very innovative French fabrics, Alben and Rhodia. Rhodia sounds if it's like a cellophane type thing, doesn't it? So at the very height of his fame, he moves to the Rond-Point. Wow. This is about 2 doors from where he was with Poiret. This huge house that Poiret had. He's made it, really, at this point. He is prompted to open his house after talking to Molyneux, seeing what Molyneux had done. And it had this very grand staircase where you often see the models photographed on this staircase. He now has a Hispano-Suiza and a liveried chauffeur, and in 1938 he hires his first assistant, Christian Dior, who stays just under 2 years and does 3 collections, winter 38 and summer-winter 39. As war is declared in September 39, Dior is called up and he goes to work on the land in the south of France. Piguet designs, he is Dior. Class, yes, no? I mean, doesn't it jump off the page? Because I think it really, and you can see Monsieur Dior here on the extreme right. So he designs an outfit for the shelter. Oh no, sorry. This is again winter 39. So probably Dior clothes. And this shows. First of all, we're on the cover of Marie Claire in Paris, but here there's Piguet for Bergdorf Goodman in America. He designs for the shelter. He the things were in the shelter. This is a picture you see over and over in all the histories of the time. And this is a fundraiser in America for French Relief, as it says, United Committee for French Relief. If you notice, it's the day before Germany crosses the border. And if you've got a winning ticket, you'll be lucky enough that Schiaparelli will make you a dress. So during the occupation, many designers leave. Molyneux goes to London. And interestingly, before that, they try to relocate to Biarritz. So it's been fascinating hearing about Biarritz. And Molyneux leaves from Biarritz. But he leaves his establishment in Paris in the hands of an assistant. Schiaparelli leaves for America, again leaves her house open. Chanel shuts her house but leaves it selling perfume. Piguet, a Swiss national, remains at the helm of his company, and his clothes continue to appear in all the magazines. Here they are, 2 of his things. He asks Dior to return. This is 41. Dior hesitates, and the position is offered to Castillo, a young Spanish aristocrat who'd left Spain in 1936 when his father and brother were executed. Dior has decided to come back and the position is no longer there, but he's offered something at Lilong, which is a bit of an upgrade, or just slightly, feels it's okay. I feel it's interesting here that some of the key designers remaining in Paris are neutrals, like Swiss and Spanish and so on. France's textile industry suffered greatly during the war, as much production was sent to Germany, and they developed a lot of synthetics, called synthetics, or worked with very difficult artificial fibres. And it may be that Piguet's links with the Swiss textile industry helped him at this time. The directrice in Yverdon, Anna Corder, says he was able to cross back and forth to Switzerland throughout the war. She said people remember seeing his Hispano-Suiza coming back and forth. In 1945, another young aristocrat, also very tall, an 18-year-old Givenchy joins him, and then succeeded a year later by Mark Bowen, later of Dior. I've never quite understood this. I mean, as we were saying this morning, Mark Bowen was head of Dior for 30 years. And I've never hardly got his clothes. If you look here, there's sort of mink knickers on this, mink knickerbockers poking out from underneath the dress. I don't know what it's about. But it's part of what makes it difficult to evaluate Piguet as a couturier rather than as a businessman, because he has so many very, very talented young men coming through that you have to ask yourself which is his eye. He clearly has a very good eye. He selects them in the first place. But is he almost a stylist? Is he a fashion editor almost? What is his position? Or how should we view him? After the war, now this then doesn't sit quite with me, this seems rather odd. He launches a perfume. Most people had launched one earlier. It's been in development since 1943, and accounts vary as to whether it was launched in 44 or 46. Obviously, it's quite significant which of those dates it was. And it shows a latent theatricality which had been part of his time at Poiret. It's called Bandit in France and Brigand in America, and its launch is accompanied by knives and guns. And at the end of a war, or just before the end of a war, this is a very audacious campaign, it's got a cult following to this day. So here he is in 46, still very much the elegant couturier, dressing women who are going out for still dressed for dinner. Here is the perfume, Bandit in France and Brigand in America. I am bringing you my first perfume. This is American Vogue in 46. This is the advertising campaign that was dropped. This wouldn't look out of place today, would it? I'm quite astounded that this was an advertising campaign in the 40s. It's got this cult following. It's seen as a very masculine perfume, and Fracas was brought out as a sort of riff on it, you say now, as the more feminine version. They still are seen as very unusual. So let's think about it. So there's very erotic overtones here, I think, which we can't deny that, can we? But this doesn't entirely fit with the manner of his house. Fracas was said to describe the state of post-war France, the name. His skill as a teacher and talent spotter, Balmain, Dior, Castillo, Givenchy, Bowen, James Galanos, who favourite of Nancy Reagan's, who died not long ago, and his last collaborator here, Serge Garin, who he'd snapped up from Lelong. Lelong had closed down, thank you, only 2 years earlier. What I think is worthy of more research is his role as an advocate of Swiss textiles, because most of the portraits you find of him he involved textiles. He's draping textiles, he's looking at them. I think this is maybe what gave him an edge in the 40s. This needs more work. His final collection, I'm just coming to the end now. He tried to find a successor. He tried very hard. Castillo and Bowen both declined, and Guerin from Lelong, and Lelong had closed without a successor. Perhaps the biggest couture name of all time in some ways at that point. Guerin seems to have been unable to attract the necessary financial backing. He retired to his home on the banks of Lac Clément, overlooking Chateau Chillon. He died 6:30 in the morning of the 21st of February 1953, 20 months after the closure of his house, after a massive hemorrhage following an operation. In contrast to Fat and Dior, neither of whom were to live in by very long, his funeral was very, very quiet, intimate affair. And I wonder if this is why he's not better remembered, this lack of ostentation. Although where does the perfume sit in that? But this lack of ostentation, even in death, is this why he's not better remembered? Thank you.
Très bien. Vous m'entendez? Oui, on m'entend bien. Bon, désolé pour ce léger retard, mais je pense que vous constaterez, après avoir entendu Marco Belfanti, qu'il y a vraiment des points très intéressants dans ce que Marco va vous dire. Donc, pour compléter les présentations de papier des chercheurs, professeurs, responsables de musées qui vous ont présenté donc, et qui vous présenteront demain leurs travaux. Le comité scientifique jugeait utile d'apporter en contrepoint des témoignages, donc d'inviter 3 chercheurs invités. Donc, pour bien sûr parler de l'actualité de Jacques Doucet, l'intervention de Jérôme Neutre sur Jacques Doucet, où la collection haute couture était bien sûr quelque chose de tout à fait naturel en ouverture. Demain, Didier Grimbach, donc, qui a été entre autres président de la Fédération de la couture pendant presque 15 ans, je crois, va vous expliquer comment la haute couture a été inventée et réinventée. Et alors, pour le troisième intervention, enfin qui est la deuxième dans l'ordre chronologique de ce soir, on avait pensé à quelque chose d'un peu différent, c'est-à-dire de ne pas parler du sujet, en fait, de ne pas parler de haute couture parisienne, mais de parler de l'histoire de la mode italienne. Alors d'une part, invitation de Marco Belfanti à ce titre s'explique parce que Marco est un spécialiste de l'histoire de la mode italienne. Il a travaillé sur d'autres sujets avant, notamment, enfin, il est arrivé à la mode italienne en partant des corporations. Mais d'autre part, je pense, vous comprendrez bien dans l'intervention, puis on prendra quelques petites minutes pour discuter et prendre vos questions, que le processus de construction d'une mode made in Italy que Marco va vous exposer, je pense, permet par contrepoint de bien comprendre la spécificité de la haute couture parisienne. Vous allez entendre des termes comme multipolarité, on va entendre parler de fragmentation, on va entendre parler de différentes villes en parlant d'Italie, et vous verrez, en France, on ne parle pas forcément de multipolarité, pas de fragmentation, on parle que d'une seule ville, Paris, qui est sur ces plaquettes. Voilà, je pense que vous comprendrez vraiment l'intérêt de traiter un petit peu de l'Italie de ce soir pour bien comprendre ce qu'a été et ce qu'est la haute couture parisienne. Donc Marco Belfanti, vous êtes professeur d'histoire économique à l'université de Brescia. Je note pour les lecteurs francophones que votre histoire culturelle de la mode, donc il y a un ouvrage vraiment qui embrasse beaucoup de problématiques, a été traduit en français et donc a été publié en 2014 aux éditions de l'IFM. Donc Marco, je vous laisse présenter cette construction de la mode made in Italy. C'est donc un intitulé qu'on avait défini ensemble, mais le terme mode in Italy ne veut pas dire fabriquer en Italie. C'est pas une opposition, un parallèle avec le made in France ou le fabriqué en France. C'est vraiment une histoire en fait que vous allez nous raconter, et ensuite on fera quelques commentaires.
Merci David, et bonsoir à tout le monde, ceux qui ont survécu à la journée intéressante, mais enrichissante, mais aussi fatigante. Les facteurs qui ont contribué à la création de l'image internationale du Made in Italy et qui devraient constituer les traits distinctifs de la créativité italienne découlent la plupart du temps d'une représentation simpliste de la culture et de la société italienne, tout autant que de reconstructions superficielles des événements historiques du pays. Ah oui, d'accord. La période historique qui aurait marqué de manière irréversible le bon goût italien est la Renaissance. Parmi les différents secteurs de production constituant le vaste univers du Made in Italy, celui de la mode a probablement été le premier à s'affirmer au niveau international et le premier à s'approprier la Renaissance en tant qu'intangible asset. Des années 50 jusqu'à nos jours, une période de succès grandissant du Made in Italy au niveau international, dans les déclarations rhétoriques des entrepreneurs, managers et experts en marketing, la Renaissance apparaît pratiquement inscrite dans les codes génétiques de la mode italienne. Celle-ci est parfois représentée comme la descendante directe et l'héritière légitime de l'excellence de la Renaissance dans le domaine du goût. En réalité, cette continuité entre la Renaissance et la mode italienne, qui est considérée comme une preuve d'ancienne noblesse par les entrepreneurs et les managers du secteur, n'existe pas. Il s'agit d'une invention aussi intelligente qu'efficace. C'est Giovanni Battista Giorgini qui est à l'origine de cette heureuse invention, de ce grand début de la mode italienne dans les années 50. Celui-ci avait parfaitement compris qu'en établissant un lien entre la créativité italienne et le patrimoine artistique du pays, on réussirait à intercepter la riche clientèle des touristes étrangers, surtout américains, qui venaient découvrir les richesses artistiques de l'Italie, et qu'en même temps, on conférerait une extraordinaire légitimité culturelle aux produits italiens, en le plaçant au centre d'une tradition de bon goût connue et appréciée, justement celle de la Renaissance. Comme l'affirment deux auteurs de marketing du Made in Italy, je cite, « Acheter un produit italien signifie acheter non seulement un article à la mode, mais aussi la clé d'accès à une communauté dont l'élément de cohésion réside dans la beauté et dans le goût. Voilà donc les bénéfices sociaux et émotionnels qui justifient le premium price. L'association avec l'histoire, l'art et la culture favorise une perception non commerciale des produits italiens, bien loin de l'exploitation des émotions qui caractérisent les stratégies de marketing traditionnelles. Fin de citation. Giorgini avait commencé son apprentissage professionnel au cours des années 20 à Florence, dans le secteur de l'artisanat de luxe. Son travail consistait à valoriser des réservoirs d'excellence artisanale pour en présenter ensuite les meilleurs produits sur le marché américain par l'intermédiaire des grands department stores. L'assortiment de Giorgini comprenait des céramiques, des verres, de la dentelle, de la broderie, des pailles d'Italie. La guerre interrompit l'activité promotionnelle de Giorgini, qui demeurait néanmoins ferme dans sa conviction que le Made in Italy avait de grandes potentialités sur le marché américain. Une fois le conflit terminé, il recommença à travailler à son projet, en misant résolument sur la mode. Immédiatement après la guerre, Giorgini renoua les rapports avec les États-Unis et proposa aux acheteurs et à la presse américaine qui se trouvait en Europe pour suivre la présentation des collections parisiennes de prolonger leur séjour en faisant étape à Florence, où ils assisteraient à un défilé de modèles italiens. Giorgini, grâce à ses excellentes relations, réussit à persuader une bonne délégation d'Américains et à dissiper la méfiance de la plupart des ateliers de couture les plus importants italiens en faisant vibrer la corde sensible. Je cite, « Comme actuellement les États-Unis sont très bienveillants à l'égard de l'Italie, il me semble qu'il est temps de tenter l'affirmation de notre mode sur ces marchés. Et comme à Paris, les collections sont montrées aux acheteurs américains les premières semaines de février et d'août, il faut s'organiser pour montrer nos collections aussi à la même époque. Dans l'intérêt des maisons elles-mêmes, il est indispensable que les modèles qui seront montrés soient purement et exclusivement d'inspiration italienne. » Fin de la citation. Le premier rendez-vous était fixé à Florence le 12 février 1951 à Villa Torrigiani, la maison de Giorgini. Ce fut un succès. La fraîcheur des créations et les prix abordables poussèrent les acheteurs étrangers à tout acheter. Giorgini put donc relancer l'initiative au début de l'été sans trop de difficultés. Au mois de juillet suivant, le défilé eut lieu au Grand Hôtel et cette fois, même les grands noms de la presse spécialisée américaine firent le déplacement. Des noms tels que Bettina Baller de Vogue, Carl Mesneau de Harper's Bazaar, qui ne furent pas avares de compliments pour l'exploit de la mode italienne. Giorgini avait su exploiter adroitement le cadre florentin pour inscrire l'événement dans le sillage de la tradition de la Renaissance. Dans le matériel illustratif distribué aux journalistes et aux acheteurs invités au premier défilé, on déclarait ouvertement que, je cite, « les collections italiennes, pour la première fois portées à l'attention internationale, traduisent par leurs lignes, leurs coupes et leurs tombées l'héritage de la tradition artistique de la Renaissance. » Fin de la citation. L'initiative de Giorgini était née de la conviction que le marché américain représentait le marché décisif pour les produits du Made in Italy. C'était déjà le cas durant l'entre-deux-guerres et ça l'était à plus forte raison au lendemain de la guerre. Deux sortes de considérations portaient à croire également que le lancement du mode Made in Italy aurait du succès sur le marché américain. La première s'est basée sur la représentation de l'Italie, ou, comme on dirait aujourd'hui, the country brand, dans la société et dans les médias des États-Unis. La perception de l'Italie vue comme la patrie de formes d'expression impérissables de la culture et du bon goût s'était consolidée au cours du XIXe siècle et restait vivace, même après le conflit, malgré le fascisme et la guerre aux côtés de l'Allemagne nazie. Il suffisait donc de relancer cette, entre guillemets, identité culturelle par un retour aux racines de la Renaissance. La seconde constatation qui étayait les espoirs de succès sur le marché américain était que En Italie, il existait des pôles importants de savoir-faire dans le domaine de la mode, en mesure d'exprimer des formes de créativité authentiques indépendantes de la toute-puissante haute couture parisienne. Quels étaient donc ces éléments à même de soutenir d'une part une, entre guillemets, identité culturelle italienne et d'autre part également, entre guillemets, des gisements de créativité qui existaient avant le 12 février 1951? L'image de l'Italie, vue comme un pays particulièrement doué pour, entre guillemets, la production culturelle, trouva un soutien dans la passion des Américains pour le mélodrame. Invention italienne, développée par Monteverdi, consolidée par Métastase et consacrée au cours du XIXe siècle par des compositeurs tels que Rossini ou Puccini, le mélodrame s'affirma comme un genre musical typiquement italien, une expression de la créativité culturelle italienne qui, après avoir conquis l'Europe, s'imposait de l'autre côté de l'océan. À cet égard, le rôle de Lorenzo da Ponte fut décisif. Engagé en 1825 comme professeur d'italien à la Columbia University, il fondait en 1833 à New York l'Italian Opera House, qui allait augmenter la liste des théâtres dans lesquels, dès la première moitié du siècle, étaient représentées les œuvres italiennes, avant qu'elles ne le soient de plus en plus souvent au Metropolitan. Justement, avec l'arrivée en 1908 de Toscanini au Metropolitan, le théâtre mit en scène les œuvres du mélodrame italien les plus importants. Rentré en Italie en 1915, Toscanini revint aux États-Unis quelques années plus tard pour diriger l'Orchestre Philharmonique de New York, puis l'Orchestre de la National Broadcasting Company, jusqu'en 1954, se confirmant comme l'ambassadeur de la culture musicale italienne par excellence. Mais l'Italie était aussi, et peut-être surtout, un immense musée à ciel ouvert, qui devint, dans la seconde moitié du XIXe siècle, un marché d'œuvres d'art important, très prisé des magnats américains, lesquels aspiraient à ennoblir leur position sociale en devenant des collectionneurs d'art. Les œuvres d'art de la Renaissance italienne figuraient en tête des désirs de personnages tels que Pierpont Morgan, James Jackson Jarvis, Henry Clay Frick, John Ringling, Samuel H. Kress, Theodore M. Davis, dont certains furent assistés, d'autres influencés par l'œuvre de Bernard Berenson. Un article publié dans le New York Times le 10 avril 1879 décrivait d'une manière assez réaliste la représentation de l'Italie dans ce qui était alors les États-Unis. Et je cite, « Cities, like individuals, seem to possess specific, innate idiosyncrasies of temperament, which impel them with an irresistible force in certain direction of development. Thus Florence, while resisting, as it were involuntary, every temptation to purely industrial and commercial enterprises, such as constitute the prosperity of the more northern cities like Genoa, Turin, and Milan, is steadily extending itself in the line of fine arts and manufactories of objects in which the aesthetic features overpower the merely utilitarian. This is not brought about by associative action, but by individual exertion, following the bent of the special artistic disposition. Hence, the remarkable multiplication of bric-a-brac shops, shop galleries, and depositories of works of fine arts, ancient and modern, including carved and inlaid furniture, wrought metals, maiolica, ivories, mosaics, glass, and whatever gave splendor and luxury to the Middle Ages and brilliancy and refinement to the Renaissance. Fin de la citation. Le terrain était donc prêt pour l'éclosion de cette forme d'art appliqué qu'était la mode. L'aspiration à un style national italien était déjà présente dans les premières années du XXe siècle. En 1906, Rosa Genoni présenta à l'exposition internationale de Milan une sélection de modèles s'inspirant justement du style de quelques grands maîtres de l'art italien de la Renaissance, tels que Pisanello et Botticelli. Le succès qu'elle remporta à cette occasion, ainsi que son inlassable activité de promotion, menèrent en 1909 à la fondation d'un comité d'initiative pour, je cite, « mode de pur art italien ». Pendant ces années-là, le succès international qu'obtint Rosa Genoni fut confirmé par l'intérêt que les pages du New York Herald réservèrent à ses créations. En 1929, c'est au tour du New York Times de communiquer au public américain un nouvel engouement pour une mode made in Italy. Je cite, "A number of Roman society women, including many of the foremost Italian aristocrats, have banded together to evolve, promote and support a purely Italian style in women's fashions. To set an example, they all bind themselves to wear no clothes which are not made in Italy by Italian workers with Italian materials or Italian designs." Fin de la citation. Des articles de mode sur la mode made in Italy, des articles de mode made in Italy étaient déjà apparemment connus aux États-Unis, au moins depuis les années 30. Vogue, dans un numéro de 1937, publiait l'article Shophound Italy, où étaient dispensés des conseils pour les achats. Je cite, "Italy is a new field for shophound, full of new faces, new ideas, new shops to investigate. Here are some scents for you to follow on your travels. Go, while you're stopping in Florence, to the Mercato del Porcellino. Girls try on floppy Florentine hats. Brides dip into heaps of embroidered napkins. Old ladies pick out straw hats for faraway grandchildren. If you're in Tuscany, you probably go to Viareggio on the seacoast to swim. And if you are in Viareggio, you'll undoubtedly go to Signora Matrigali little shop to look at her famous shoes, especially sandals, which are Air Forte. Fin de citation. Pendant les années de la Reconstruction, dans les médias après-guerre, on assista aux reprises des activités économiques qui purent bénéficier largement du programme d'aide mis en place par les États-Unis. Mais l'industrie textile put profiter de l'aide américaine et sa reprise jeta les bases qui permirent au secteur de la mode de se développer pendant les années qui suivirent. Cependant, l'intensification des relations économiques avec les États-Unis constituait également une grande opportunité d'accès au vaste marché américain. Dès la seconde moitié des années 40, les acteurs américains avaient recommencé à s'adresser à l'Italie pour s'approvisionner en produits d'artisanat de luxe, avec un intérêt particulier pour le secteur de la mode. L'image de la créativité italienne avait déjà relancé en 1947, lorsque Salvatore Ferragamo, déjà connu depuis une dizaine d'années, reçut le prestigieux Neiman Marcus Award. En 1947 encore, le modèle en cuir de Gucci triomphait dans les pages de Harper's Bazaar. Mais c'est probablement Emilio Pucci qui allait remporter la palme du design italien le plus connu et apprécié aux États-Unis à cette époque. Découvert en 1947 à Zermatt par un photographe de Harper's Bazaar, Emilio Pucci fut signalé au public américain par un article paru également dans Harper's Bazaar en 1948. Déjà se profilait ce qui allait être la caractéristique spécifique du système de la mode italien, à savoir sa division en pôles. Ferragamo, Gucci et Pucci avaient leur point d'attache à Florence, où des maisons de mode étaient très actives, comme celle d'Adela Iazze Fantecchi, Iella Bellenghi, Emilia Bossi et d'autres, qui expérimentaient des solutions alternatives par rapport à celles que proposait la haute couture. L'autre pôle était Rome. Le succès de la mode romaine, durant la seconde après-guerre, a été le fruit d'un processus qui avait débuté dans les années 70 du XIXe siècle, après les bouleversements socio-économiques qui secouèrent la ville à partir de 1871, lorsqu'elle devint la capitale de l'Italie. La venue dans la capitale de la famille royale, des bureaux de gouvernement, des ambassades, des commerçants et des petits entrepreneurs, bouleversa la hiérarchie sociale dominée par les vieilles et puissantes familles de l'aristocratie romaine, laissant le champ libre à une noblesse moins conservatrice et surtout à une nouvelle bourgeoisie urbaine, porteuse de nouvelles valeurs culturelles et de nouveaux styles de vie et de consommation. Tout cela créant une demande spécifique d'articles et d'accessoires de haute couture qui attira à Rome les artisans les plus habiles du secteur provenant d'autres villes italiennes. La première couturière qui créa un mode indépendant des canons parisiens ne fut pas une couturière au sens strict, mais une artiste, Maria Monaci Gallenga, pour qui réaliser des vêtements signifiant une synthèse parfaite entre la représentation plastique et la représentation picturale. En 1915, elle présenta ses premières réalisations à la Panama Pacific International Exposition de San Francisco, où un grand prix fut lui attribué. Dès lors, et jusqu'en 1935, les créations de Maria Monaci Gallenga connurent un énorme succès dans toute l'Europe et aussi aux États-Unis et furent couronnées en 1925 par le Grand Prix qui lui fut décerné par le jury international à l'Exposition internationale des arts décoratifs et industriels modernes de Paris. Avec Maria Monaci Gallenga, Rome devint pour la première fois aussi exportatrice d'un succès créatif de la mode féminine italienne, à tel point qu'en 1928, après avoir ouvert une succursale de son atelier romain à Florence, Madame Gallenga ouvrit une maison à Paris, active jusqu'en 1934. Sa réussite stimula les couturiers qui, dans les années 30, décidèrent de s'affranchir de Paris, encouragés par le climat culturel et politique de cette période. À Rome, Giovanni Montorsi fut le premier couturier à créer sa propre ligne de haute couture, accueilli avec enthousiasme dans toute la péninsule. Nicola Zecca, dont les premiers modèles s'inspiraient du style lyonnais, dont il garda toujours la passion pour la coupe en biais, se fit quant à lui interprète de l'emploi de fibres autarciques pour créer ces vêtements de jour particulièrement recherchés. Quelques-uns de ces habits portés par la comtesse Caetani en visite aux États-Unis furent publiés dans American Vogue en 1937. Le succès international de la mode romaine arriva juste après la fin de la Seconde Guerre mondiale. La crise de la haute couture parisienne, ainsi qu'une plus grande conscience de leurs possibilités, poussa définitivement les couturiers romains à s'affranchir une fois pour toutes de Paris. Le marché des États-Unis contribua d'ailleurs grandement à cette réussite. En effet, avec la fin du conflit, la capitale redevint une destination touristique internationale, surtout pour les riches américains qui commencèrent à découvrir et à apprécier la créativité des maisons de Rome, formant ainsi le gros de leur clientèle, au point que de nombreuses agences de tourisme étrangères incluaient dans leur forfait des visites guidées dans les maisons de mode et couturiers les plus en vue dans la capitale. Emilio Schubert, Simonetta, Sorelle Fontana, Carosa, Maria Antonelli, Fernanda Gattinoni. Simonetta, une aristocrate de la famille des Visconti di Cesarò, fut la première couturière romaine à attirer l'attention du marché américain en ouvrant un atelier en 1946. Ces modèles, publiés dans American Vogue en 1947, suscitèrent un véritable engouement international. Le grand événement médiatique qui contribua à braquer les réflecteurs sur la haute couture romaine fut le mariage de la star américaine Tyrone Power avec l'actrice Linda Christian, célébré à Rome le 26 janvier 1949. Les photos des deux époux publiées en première page des principaux magasins européens et américains mirent sur le devant de la scène la somptueuse robe de la mariée créée par la maison Sorelle Fontana et le tight porté par le marié créé par Domenico Caraceni. Ce jour-là, le monde découvrait le talent des couturiers romains, mais surtout la mode romaine scellait son propre mariage avec le cinéma hollywoodien. Car c'est bien au début des années 50 que les locaux magnifiquement équipés de Cinecittà, fondés par le fascisme en 1937, se mirent à accueillir des metteurs en scène et des acteurs américains qui travaillaient pour des films produits par les plus grands majors des États-Unis. En premier lieu, Metro Goldwyn Mayer, ce qui fit mériter à Rome le surnom de Hollywood sur le Tibre. Milan, enfin, bien que jouissant alors d'un moindre renom par rapport à Florence et Rome, constituait le troisième pôle À Milan, il y avait des maisons de mode, parfois depuis les années 30, qui se distinguaient par leur originalité et qui allaient contribuer au baptême de la mode italienne en 1951. Vanna, Vitano Berasco, Iole Veneziani et surtout Germana Marucelli. En 1949, par exemple, Germana Marucelli avait présenté à Milan une collection de vêtements qui s'inspirait de l'art de la Renaissance. Et en 1950, au cours d'une manifestation au Théâtre de la Pergola à Florence, elle avait mis en scène des mannequins sortant de reproductions des célèbres tableaux de la Renaissance. En mars 1950, Women's Wear Daily présentait la collection de Germana Marucelli en soulignant l'originalité et surtout l'autonomie du style par rapport au modèle parisien. En conclusion, l'initiative de Giorgini avec le défilé du 12 février 1951 eut des retombées fondamentales à deux niveaux. D'une part, elle permit de rassembler et de coordonner, même pour une durée limitée, les maisons de mode de la péninsule, le temps de fêter le baptême de la mode italienne. Et d'autre part, de relancer la nouveau-née sur le marché américain, en exploitant habilement, entre guillemets, l'effet Renaissance. Le marché américain, quant à lui, était prêt à répondre positivement à ces sollicitations, car l'image de l'Italie, perçue comme le berceau des beaux-arts, la patrie du bon goût, le lieu d'élection du savoir-faire, avait survécu au siècle du déclin économique du pays, de sa marginalisation politique et même de la guerre aux côtés de l'Allemagne nazie et du Japon. L'Italie pouvait à son tour profiter de cette opportunité grâce au gisement de créativité qui ne remontait pas à la Renaissance, mais qui s'était formé surtout dans la première moitié du XXe siècle, sous forme de pôles cristallisés autour de Florence, Rome, Milan, dans une moindre mesure Naples, annonçant déjà la multipolarité qui demeure encore aujourd'hui la caractéristique essentielle de la mode italienne. Expliquer comment et pourquoi se sont formés ces gisements de créativité n'est pas chose facile. On peut déjà supposer l'existence d'une relation dialectique, imitation-compétition, contradictoire avec la haute couture, dont les Italiens avaient beaucoup appris, mais dont ils voulaient se démarquer. Une autre explication met en cause le fascisme. On l'admet à contre-cœur, mais sans doute les mesures politiques adoptées durant cette période afin de promouvoir une mode nationale, en première avec l'institution de l'Ente nationale de la mode, pourraient, elles, avoir joué un rôle tout autre que secondaire. On est en droit également de se demander jusqu'à quel point une identité nationale pour affirmer la mode créée en Italie était nécessaire. L'exemple de la haute couture à cet égard était parlant. Celle-ci était devenue un phénomène de portée internationale tout en restant l'expression de l'identité française. Par conséquent, l'identification nationale, en country branding, comptait aussi pour l'Italie, surtout relativement au marché outre-Atlantique. Bref, pour conclure par un raccourci non dénué d'une certaine brutalité, l'élaboration de la mode Made in Italy a été une coproduction italo-américaine, efficace, corroborée par une sorte de syndrome de Stendhal collectif dont la société américaine était atteinte. Je vous remercie.